Hey now, it is a feel-good Friday afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, all here with you on this Friday afternoon. Here with you until 5:20, 5:30 or so. We've got our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader, our final one for the regular season of high school hoops here in Kansas, coming up late this afternoon into the evening. It'll be Highland Park in action. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. We've got a lot to get to on the show. We would love for you to be a part of the program today. You know how to get in touch with us. Text line number is 785-272-9429. You can also find us on YouTube. Head to youtube.com. Just search the name of the show, 580 Sports Talk. Go subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Then go check out our live video stream today. You can hang out in the comments section. Let us know anything let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about on the show today. You can also find our video stream on Facebook as well and through our website, 580wibw.com. Coming up here in this opening hour of the program, we've got plenty of NFL to get to. Talk a little Chiefs draft. I know we're still about 2 months, a little over 2 months away from the NFL draft, but how are the Chiefs going to attack the draft this year? We'll also get to the salary cap number for this year. Originally was expected to be about $242.5 million. I know we saw the report from Mike Florio that said it could be upwards of $250 million. And now we know it's going to be $255 million per team in 2024. That'll free up a whole lot more cap space. We'll assess what that might mean for the Kansas City Chiefs coming up here in a little bit. We've got some Royals to get to today. Some notes from spring training, including a signing that could maybe impact what the Royals end up doing with their 26-man roster. We will talk to Matt Derrick for our Chiefs Insider. CJ Moore is going to join us. We didn't get to talk to CJ yesterday. He was on assignment, but we will talk to CJ coming up today, right after he lands back home after a trip down to Boca to hang out with Dusty May and FAU basketball. So CJ is going to join us coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. We've got our headlines. What is wrong with you championship for the week? Change my mind. On second thought. It's all coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. And again, we will be done a little bit early because Dan and the coach, Larry Latimer, will be on the call for our final Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader for the regular season as Highland Park looks to cap off another phenomenal regular season when they take on KC Washington tonight.
Yeah, should be two good games. League games, obviously, senior night for Highland Park, final regular season games for both the Scots and the Lady Scots. So excited to be there. They're going to play at Topeka West tonight. For those who haven't been following, Highland Park's gym had a pipe burst and dealt with some water damage. So they still haven't been able to restore their gym to be able to use it this year, unfortunately. So they've been kind of barnstorming around, and they're going to play at Topeka West tonight. Expecting a girls varsity start at 5:30, which means we'll be on the air at approximately 5:15 with the pregame coverage. Of course, we always say approximately because you just never know. But hang out with us and enjoy some basketball tonight, the final night of the regular season.
Yeah, that should be a blast coming up later on this evening. And, of course, those games you can hear right here on 580 WIBW. So much good basketball on our airwaves coming up. We'll preview the weekend action for KU and K-State coming up a little bit later on. K-State gets their chance for revenge against BYU coming up tomorrow. If I'm not mistaken, Dan, you will be there for that game in Manhattan. Spencer will be in Lawrence tomorrow for KU versus Texas. That crowd is going to be awesome. Final conference game with Texas at Allen Fieldhouse. And I mean, Texas has been pretty good in basketball for a long time. And KU fans, myself included, loved to beat Shaka Smart. But given the battles those two programs have had in the modern history of the Big 12, it's kind of sad. I mean, I'm happy that Texas is leaving because I'm just so sick of Burnt Orange and the Horns Up and all that. So I'm not upset that they're leaving, but it is a bummer you're going to lose out on what has been one of the best quote-unquote rivalries in Big 12 basketball over time. I mean, you talk about the baddest man to ever walk in Allen Fieldhouse, Kevin Durant, all the great battles in the Big 12 tournament, so many good ones at Allen Fieldhouse. So that crowd is going to be amped up for that game tomorrow. The K-State game, of course, you'll be able to catch right here on 580 WIBW. High school hoops tonight. Washburn basketball last night was an absolute doozy. Goodness gracious, what a win for the men and the women getting off the schneid as well. Washburn Hoops on Country 106.9 tomorrow. So a great weekend of high school and college basketball coming your way on the Alpha Media Topeka family of stations. But before we get to the college basketball this weekend, how about a little Kansas City Chiefs? How are they going to attack the NFL draft this year? We're still 2 months plus away from the start of the NFL draft. We have all come to an understanding. We are all in understanding with each other. We don't think the Chiefs are going to be especially aggressive in free agency this year. Now, that might change for a reason we'll talk about a little bit later on in this hour. But assuming the Chiefs are probably going to do what they've done many times in the past, if they're going to spend big, probably to keep their homegrown stars, maybe add some supplemental pieces through free agency. Maybe you're looking at a veteran wide receiver with a 2-year deal and an option, or you're looking at a defensive lineman on a 1-year deal with an option year after that, or something like that. Those are the kind of things maybe the Chiefs are going to do in free agency. So knowing that, and knowing that a majority of the core of this team is staying together, you've got Trent McDuffie coming back. Nick Bolton, he's coming back. Your best linebacker, arguably your best linebacker. You've got Karlaftis and eventually Amenahu, and you drafted Felix last year. You've got a lot of those pieces defensively. Brian Cook will be back in the secondary as well. A lot of your standouts there going to be back. Leo Chanel probably going to play a bigger role, by the way, this coming year at linebacker. Offensively, you got Mahomes, you got Kelsey, you got Rashee Rice, you've got Isaiah Pacheco, you've got most of the offensive line returning. You're pretty much set there. You got TE2 as well with Noah Gray getting another year on that rookie contract. So you're set at a lot of those spots. So knowing that, and knowing that you're probably not going to add too many star players through free agency this year, how do we think the Chiefs are going to approach this year's draft? Normally, we think of Brett Veach as someone who is willing to wheel and deal in the draft, and I feel like the Chiefs have kind of developed a reputation for being a team that loves to move back and to add picks and stockpile in that regard. But that's not really an entirely accurate way to view the Chiefs' recent draft history. Are they willing to trade on draft day and to go either up or back to make a move, to make a pick? Yes, absolutely. How many times did they trade 3 times last year to move up and down in the draft? I mean, they were zigzagging all over. They've obviously been willing to move picks already. The Chiefs are only guaranteed 5 of them at the moment in this year's draft. Rounds 1 through 4, they have their own picks. Round 5, they got rid of 1. They got 1 back. And then their 7th rounder is a conditional pick that might go to Houston. We have never found out what the conditions on that pick are. So I don't know if Houston is indeed getting that pick or not. But either way, Chiefs are only going to have a limited number of picks this year. Last year, they made 7, and they came away with a pretty good class. Felix, you hope is going to be better this year. Rashee Rice is the number 1 receiver for you. Shamari Connor was really good. Wanya Morris might be your future left tackle. He had a good class last year. The year before that, we remember one of the greatest classes in Chiefs history. 10 guys were picked. McDuffie, Karlaftis, Cook, that draft. Prior to that, the first 4 years of draft classes for Brett Veach, where it was all Brett Veach's show, Chiefs only made 6 picks in all of them. They had a lower than median number of draft picks every year, 2018 through 2021, the first 4 drafts of Brett Veach. And if you want to go even further back, the last John Dorsey draft, the Chiefs also only made 6 picks. Now, granted, they had to move a couple around that year. You might remember who they took with the 10th overall selection after trading up from 27 in that year's NFL draft. So the Chiefs are willing to move around. They're comfortable only having a handful of picks. But it does make me wonder if this is the year where they might try to go with a more conservative approach, knowing that they're going to have a lot of money tied up in the guys they already have. Another big Mahomes cap hit. One of Snead or Jones, whichever one is more likely to be re-signed. One of them is going to get a big fat payday and is going to eat up a lot of space on the cap. How do you approach this draft? Is it the kind of thing where you still say, hey, we're going to do what we always do, and if we want to move up for a guy, we'll do it, and if that means we only make 4 picks this year, then so be it? Or does this feel more like a year where you're willing to be more conservative and say, hey, we'll let the board fall to us, and we're willing to move back to stockpile some cheap talent?
I think it might be the latter. This feels like a year where the Chiefs might be able to move back a couple of spots in order to obtain an extra 3rd day pick. You look at this roster. We talked about it going into the Super Bowl. This is not a roster built on blue chip draft talent. Obviously, Mahomes is the number 10 overall pick. And then there are exceptions. There are only 7 first-round picks on the entire roster.
It's pretty crazy.
And a lot of those first-round picks, like Blaine Gabbert, he counts. Kadarius Toney.
Well, he's a free agent even.
Yeah. So, just at the end of last year, guys who ended last year on the roster, 7 first-round picks total. Obviously, Mahomes is the game changer. He's the best player in football. But, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a first-round pick. Kadarius Toney was a first-round pick. Blaine Gabbert was a first-round pick. Those are the guys you're talking about. On defense, Felix Anudike-Uzomah didn't play in the playoffs other than 7 snaps in the Super Bowl. And then you obviously had McDuffie and Karlaftis, who were important players, but they were acquired late in the first round. A lot of this team, even the best players, even the future Hall of Famers on this roster, were acquired with second and third day picks. Third round pick Travis Kelce, second round pick Chris Jones, and so on and so forth. So I think this is a team that evaluates its talent as right now being good enough to win a Super Bowl, and you need to supplement that with depth. This is a team that understands, they're the anti-Chargers. They understand how important it is to have some depth. But yes, it's nice to have stars, but you got to have 53 guys who are going to help you win football games, and probably more than that over the course. I mean, how many guys didn't even start the year on the roster for the Chiefs were instrumental? Can you imagine the Chiefs making that playoff run without Mike Pennell? Didn't even start the year on the roster. So
he barely played for them at all year.
Yeah. So this is a team that understands that depth is what is important, that the star power on this roster is already there. They have the brightest star in the sky. Patrick Mahomes is the sun. In the NFL, he is the sun. He is the brightest star in the sky. And so what you need to fill out around the sun are depth pieces, players that you can develop, players that maybe you're not paying a first-round salary, but you're getting that level of production from. So I would not be surprised, especially with how deep this draft is at certain positions, wide receiver specifically for the Chiefs case. Could I see them sitting there at 32 on the first day of the draft and thinking, you know what, we could probably move back 3 or 4 spots and end up with a wide receiver we really like. Let's move back 4 spots and let's add a 4th round pick, or let's add a 5th round pick. And maybe doing that a couple of times in the draft. So you end up with maybe 7 or 8 picks instead of just going into the day with potentially 5. I could see that being more likely than the Chiefs saying, all right, we're going to punch in all our tickets. We only like 3 guys in this whole draft. We like a first day guy. We like a second day guy. We like a third day guy. And we're just going to make sure we come away with those no matter what. I think this is a year to add, not to subtract. Winning franchises tend to do that.
I tend to agree with what Dan said. And obviously we'll get into it in, later on this hour, but I think the new cap number will change maybe how they wanted to draft, because you can free up an extra, 16 million ish cutting MVS and Tony.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on top of, I think that puts you in the $40 million range in your salary. I mean, obviously a big chunk of that's going to go to whoever you decide to sign between Snead and Jones, but I think maybe because you have more money available through free agency, you might be able to change how you intended to draft before you get the number went all the way up to 255. But trading back, getting more picks, obviously that will help you down the line if you can get good depth like they have later in the draft, like with all the names that Dan mentioned.
So so that's what you're going to look at in terms of the number of picks you're going to end up making and the level of aggressiveness in terms of moving around. What positions do you target this year? And I know everyone likes to talk about, best player available versus drafting for need. Every team in the NFL is drafting best player available. I'm telling you that right now. The whole there are certain instances where you quote unquote draft for need. And obviously teams have bigger needs at certain positions than others. But Caleb Williams falls to pick number 10. Who's drafting 10th this year?
That's not happening though.
Well, but exactly that's my point though. If he falls to, here's a better example. He falls to number 5. Okay, Caleb Williams falls to number 5, or Drake May falls to number 5. The Chargers are in a position where, we don't really need a quarterback, but we at least would have to probably think about taking him. Also, someone's going to trade up and take him. Like, that's how that works. Or let's say it is the Jets. Let's say he falls all the way to 10. Drake May, he had a gas mask bong in a video that got released on Twitter, and he falls all the way from number 1 overall pick all the way down to double digits, just like Laramie Tunsil did, right? The New York Jets, they've got Aaron Rodgers there at quarterback, old quarterback. They need offensive line. They need wide receivers. They could probably use some defensive depth. They got a whole bunch of other positions they need. You think they're passing up on the number 2 player in this entire class just because they don't need a quarterback right now?
No,
they're taking him. Other teams that have plenty of talent all over the field. You know, Marvin Harrison Jr. falls to Atlanta at number 8. Well, they got a number 1 receiver. They got good depth at receiver. They've got a number 1 tight end. You think they're passing on Marvin Harrison Jr. just because they already have good wide receivers? No, you're taking him in a heartbeat. You're not even thinking twice about it at that point. So you're taking the best player who's available on the board. That being said, if you're talking about building out, fleshing out this roster long term, what positions are you looking for in this draft? I think wide receiver is the obvious one here because along with, I still think adding a veteran, even if it's on a short-term deal, is going to be important for this team going for, I mean, essentially someone to fill that role that MVS is likely going to vacate by being released, assuming that ends up happening. Everyone seems to think that's going to be the case this year. You need to shore up that group going forward because you're likely not going to have MVS or Tony or Richie James. Who knows about Sky Moore, what his future is going to look like. So you've got to build that up for the future. That is a long-term play, adding guys there. Offensive line. Interior of your offensive line. Nick Allegretti is a free agent. You got to figure out, he's great depth. That's one of the very few legitimately good depth linemen in the entire NFL.
Right.
You know why depth linemen are depth? Because they're not good enough to start, and they're not really good enough to play generally. That's more so the case at offensive line than I think any other position on the football field. If you're not starting, you're usually not very good. You've got to find some depth there. I think offensive line, probably early day 3, would make a lot of sense for the Chiefs because they've still got to figure out what they're doing. Tooney's going to be around, but you got to figure out his contract situation.
And his health.
Great point.
Because presumably he's going to undergo surgery, and will he be right for training camp?
Creed Humphrey is going into the final year of his rookie deal. Same for Trey Smith. They're both eligible for extensions this offseason. Are you going to extend them? I think that is a big question right there. The Chiefs are going to take a cornerback. Or a defensive back at the very least. Maybe it's safety, maybe it's corner, maybe it's both. They're taking one.
That's what they do.
No team has been better at developing day 3 defensive backs in modern history than the Kansas City Chiefs. They just get unbelievable value and unbelievable finds there every single year. So those are the ones that jump out to me. You got to add some, a base for your receiver core. You're going to need depth on the offensive line, and this team is going to take a defensive back, if not multiple. Where else do you think it makes sense, or are those the only 3 that feel like must-have needs for this team in terms of draft position?
Yeah, I don't feel like there's anywhere. Like, you never have too many pass rushers, right? Like that feels that feels like another spot to go for a day 3 flyer, like they did last year with B.J. Thompson.
That was where my take was going to be.
Defensive line, an end or a defensive tackle, because you could lose Derrick Nottie in free agency. Mike Pinnell's a free agent. Turk Wharton's a free agent. So I could see them addressing defensive tackle. There might be a starting caliber defensive tackle available for them at 32. If they could find another interior rush threat to pair with Chris Jones, if they bring him back, that could be awfully enticing at 32 overall. But other than that, yeah, third day defensive back, that feels like a trend at this point for the Chiefs, and I'd be surprised if they didn't continue to follow. You're always looking for line depth, and yeah, you'd like to get another reliable target for Patrick Mahomes. You've seen what he can do with basically 2 guys whose hands he trusts. What if you could get him a third? Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say 100% so.
My list, obviously, would be receiver, offensive line depth, defensive line in general depth, because of the amount of guys that are set to be free agents and not knowing what you're going to do with them. And then obviously a defensive back. I mean, you guys keep mentioning about the success they've had in the draft, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with their free agent defensive backs.
Yeah, no, I think
besides Snead, you're obviously going to get Snead. That's one of your number 1 priorities, as they've mentioned, but like you have a set of guys that, you know, are going to be free agents that are in the back end of that defensive core.
Yeah, I'm bringing back Mike Edwards if I'm in that position. I try to say, hey, will you take the same deal you took last year, or will you at least keep us in mind while you're feeling out the market, because he was awesome down the stretch.
Such a good fit.
And again, here are the players that the Chiefs have taken, defensive backs, since Brett Veach took over full time as the Chiefs GM. Okay. They did not take one, or I'm sorry, they took Armani Watts in 2018. Okay, that didn't work. I kept waiting for it to work. It didn't work. They traded Parker Enger for undrafted free agent Charvarius Ward. Think that one worked out?
Pretty good.
Yeah, that one worked out pretty damn well. Then you had 2019. Juan Thornhill was a second-round pick. That one worked, though. He's a multi-year starter. His rookie season, he was incredible before that ACL injury.
Got a pretty good second contract, too.
Yeah, sixth round, Rashad Fenton. You got 3 years out of a sixth-round pick, and his best year was his rookie year, where, by the way, he was a starter for a Super Bowl team. Yeah, that's a pretty good pick. 2020, seventh round, they took Bo Pete Keys. He was a special teams guy, bounced around the league. L'Jarius Sneed in the fourth round. Yeah, all-pro caliber player. That's worked out pretty dang well for them. No one went in 2021. Then in 2022, on day 3 of the draft, you took both Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson. Johnson hasn't really played, and the injury, of course, sucked this past year. Jalen Watson was really good as a rookie, and then didn't play nearly as much actually on defense this year because of how well Sneed played. I mean, he was awesome. The safeties played a ton this year. He comes up with one of the biggest plays of the season in the Super Bowl, recovering that punt.
Yeah.
He was awesome. And Nick Jones this past year, he didn't play. He essentially took a redshirt year. Like, that track record is unbelievable. If you hit even 50% of the time on day 3, guys, you are, and I mean hit as in like you can rotate into the lineup.
Yeah, they are NFL caliber players. Like,
to have a legitimate number 1 boundary or slot corner in L'Jarius Sneed and multiple bona fide rotation guys who you took on day 3 of the draft, you have to keep hitting it.
Yeah.
Like if you're hitting 50% of those, I mean, you're GM of the year. So that's going to happen. I am certain that is going to happen, especially if you end up with L'Jarius Sneed on the tag. You got to make sure you have a long-term plan behind him. I think that's a no doubt about that. The NFL salary cap is going up a lot this year. We're going to talk about just how much it is going up and what that is going to mean for the Chiefs and the rest of the league in just a little bit. First things first, though, Change My Mind is coming up next on this Feel Good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, and Spencer here with you on 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started on this Friday afternoon. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Little Change My Mind coming your way here on this Friday edition of the show. Change my mind. There is no more exhilarating way to end a sporting event than a buzzer beater.
Maybe it's me being a baseball guy. I'm going to advocate for the walk-off home run because you get to be the center of everyone's attention for a long time. Like if you hit a buzzer-beating three-pointer and then you got to do like a full lap around the gym as the crowd noise crescendoed and then jump into the arms of your teammates and do a wild celebration, maybe get your jersey yanked off of you, maybe get like a bucket of gum dumped on you, certainly a couple of buckets of Gatorade. I might be inclined to vote for the buzzer beater, but all those things happen when you hit a walk-off home run. And also, buzzer beaters, like half court, three-quarter court, NCAA tournament game, like in those specific notions, like that's cooler than like hitting a walk-off home run for the Giants to beat the Nationals on May 7th.
Yeah.
Like in front of like 15,000 people on a Sunday afternoon at Oracle Park. So there's levels to this. But on balance, I would rather hit the walk-off home run because that's the hardest thing to do in sports.
I figured you might go with that. I had a thought.
Playoff overtime goal in the NHL. Stanley Cup playoffs overtime goal to win it in the NHL.
All right, so like generally speaking,
again,
so we're talking like any given baseball game or basketball game or football game or hockey game. Because like situationally, I mean anything in the playoffs would be at the top of the list. But we're talking like
there've been some sick playoff buzzer beaters, like the Kawhi Leonard's four
bounces in
again, for Toronto against Philadelphia was incredible. In a game 7.
About $1 million in the NCAA tournament.
LeBron's got a couple. Game 1 of the Eastern Finals in 2009. They ended up losing the series, but he hit the buzzer beater in game 1.
Derrick Rose against the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Bull should have won that series.
Why am I blanking on his name? I called bank.
Oh, I called game. Paul
Pierce, Wizards.
KU guy.
That is a top 2 moment in Wizards history.
Yeah.
like is that winning the championship and the time Gilbert Arenas got suspended for bringing his guns to work.
And then the fourth one was when they thought they got, the best player at the time, the best player in NBA history to come out of retirement.
Oh yeah.
Thought they were going to win some championships there on just his name alone.
Michael Jordan was a whiz. Zard. They call him the Zards.
No.
Okay.
The Whiz kids.
Did you possibly see what Ryan Russillo said about the Wizards the other day?
No,
I guess it was this morning. I watched the Wizards in person last night. It was bad.
Yeah.
2,200 likes on Twitter.
So they played the Nuggets last night.
Yeah.
So you also saw that.
I watched a little bit of it. Yes. You can tell how much respect the Nuggets and by extension Nikola Jokic have for their opponents by how often Jokic shoots the basketball. Like if he's out there and he's not even trying to score, then you are some bums. He shot 10 times last night. You know how many of those shots he made?
All of them.
Yeah. And he had triple-double. 21, 19, and 15. He completed the side quest. He now has a triple-double against every other team in the NBA.
That's pretty impressive.
Except for, naturally,
the Nuggets.
This has been Talking Wizards.
They
are catastrophe.
How did we get here from talking about, I mentioned playoff overtime.
Paul
Wizards
Pierce,
great. Wizards great. Paul Pierce.
For like a hot second.
See, I think for me, I'm going with the buzzer beater here because it's so sudden.
Yeah.
Like even a walk-off home run can be, like if you hit it on the first pitch, it's obviously very sudden. But for a lot of there's some kind of buildup.
Yes, I like that. I like that the tension builds as an at bat. You know, it might be the 2-2 pitch.
Yeah.
I feel like that in general, get lead changing hits, but especially in the playoffs in baseball, have such tension building. Like that takes me back to the Nationals' first playoff run when they played the Cardinals and Drew Storen just completely threw the game for them. And just the tension was just mounting. Like they should have taken him out the hitter before, but they didn't. And then he gave up a hit, and then the Nationals lost.
I feel it's hard in football because there just aren't. I mean, there are a lot of walk-off field goals. There aren't a lot of walk-off touchdowns. Like Deshaun Jackson returning a punt to win a game,
the
or
second miracle at the Meadowlands.
Yeah, Patrick Peterson once did that. I've got a buddy who's a Rams fan who hates Patrick Peterson to this day because of that regular season game. That's a terrible Rams team, too.
You don't have a lot of those. A lot of the game-winning plays in football, unless it's an overtime winner, are last-second field goals.
Or interceptions on Hail Marys.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. What's the one? David Garrard to Mike Thomas.
Oh,
yes.
With Gus Johnson on the call.
Gus on the
that's
call.
a good one.
Yeah.
It just happens so infrequently.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's either a buzzer beater or a walk-off.
Yeah, I think devoid of if you set it in front of a indifferent crowd, on a relatively meaningless the stakes, you level out the stakes. I feel like the walk-off is still cooler because of the celebration that happens. And again, I will argue that hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports.
Well, yes, that's true.
This is building on a conversation that we had yesterday, Spencer and I, while you were gone, Brendan. So Spencer disagreed with me, I think, a little bit on this. So I want to see if you disagree with me. Changed my mind. The Chargers will be the second best team in the AFC West next year.
I mean, almost by default. Yeah, they will. I mean, they've got the best coach.
That's my argument. Best coach and best quarterback. The foundation for moving forward, they are set at the two most important places.
They do have a lot of roster building they have to do, because you mentioned it in our first segment. I mean, they're outside of 6 dudes, 2 of whom are hurt all the time in Derwin James and Joey Bosa. I mean, that roster is not very good, but you've got the most important position figured out. You've got your head coach figured out. Now, granted, Greg Roman coaching Justin Herbert is going to be wild. I have no idea what to expect out of that pairing.
I feel like it's going to be a rip snorting good time for about a year, maybe 2 on the high end.
Like everywhere else Greg Roman has been.
Precisely. Yes.
But now with a quarterback who is a better throw. Well, Lamar's a really good thrower. Their offense was just so boring by the time Greg Roman was done there. I'm fascinated by that. But I just don't know what the Raiders are really doing. I don't really know what the plan is. I know all the players love Antonio Pierce. His staff is bizarre, to say the least. The front office picks have been weird. And Aiden O'Connell's fine. He'd probably be a really good backup, but I don't know that he is a starting caliber quarterback. They don't have one. Are you going to, you drafting Bo Nix? Is that your answer if you're the Raiders? I don't know. I don't know that makes a whole lot of sense.
That's future Denver Bronco Bo Nix to you.
Well, yeah, and then if you're Denver, there's some pieces that I like. Their defense was pretty good down the stretch last year. I think Peyton will get things figured out if he's got a quarterback who's more willing to bend the knee to what he wants to do. Who is that? Are you buying Penix? I like Michael Penix. I think he can make it in the league, but are you buying him as a guy who can help you contend for a division with that roster?
Probably not right away, at least.
Nick's doing that? Is J.J. McCarthy going to fall to them? Based on the mock draft guys, it sounds like no. J.J. McCarthy is not going to fall that far. So I just don't know what you do there. So because of the 2 most important things being figured out for the Chargers, I think by default they have to be.
I know you said yesterday, Spencer, you were kind of leaning toward the Raiders.
Yeah, I just don't know if you don't have to do a lot to get under the cap now with it going higher than you thought. But if you release 2 of your best pass rushers, what's your attack going to be on defense? Because that's the projection, is that both Mack and Bosa are your cap casualties.
Could be casualties, yeah.
Here's one for you.
They account for $75 million.
Non-quarterback wise, the 2 best players in the division, non-Chiefs, take the Chiefs out,
okay,
of the other 3 teams in the AFC West, non-quarterback, the 2 best players in the division are both Raiders.
Crosby and Adams.
Yeah.
Player value being what it is, I could see if you were a Denver fan, you'd argue for Patrick Surtain. If you were a Charger fan, you might argue for, Khalil Mack had 17 sacks last year.
Yeah, Mack is still really good. I love Surtain. He's
great,
a star.
And Bosa's great when he's healthy, but that was my gut feeling too. I kind of knew where you were going with what you were about to say. And my gut reaction was, well, it's probably Adams and Crosby. Yeah.
Crosby's so good, man. He is so freaking.
What are the skill positions going to look like for the Chargers next year? That's like Eckler's not coming back.
No.
No.
Keenan Allen they could cut. I think he might be prohibitive to cut. Maybe they keep him around, but Mike Williams seems more likely. He might be a cut. And like they don't have anybody else. Like it's just
No, they don't.
Yeah,
No,
and-
that roster stinks.
Justin
And your
Herbert
new
out there-
GM has no ties to anybody. So, like, that the
no
the
natural
organization-
ties
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
So anybody could go.
They have all of their original picks. Those are the 7 they have this year in the draft. You probably have to take at least 2 pass catchers.
Yeah.
Take a running back in round 6 or 7, or hope for a good undrafted player.
I mean,
I
if
don't
you're
know,
gonna
man.
cut, if you're gonna cut your DNs, you got to take
Yeah.
the end.
I know people are going to buy into Harbaugh right away because he's paired with Herbert, but they have so many holes.
They have so much work to do.
Second
And
best-
Greg Roman. I hate Greg Roman.
Second,
From being around a Ravens fan every day in my last job, I mean, I hate Greg Roman just by proxy.
osmosis, by proxy.
saying they're going to be second best in the division and saying they're going to be playoff caliber, not mutually inclusive here.
We
No,
talked
they might
about
be the
that
second best
yesterday.
team at 7 and 10.
Yeah.
Real quick, did you ever change my mind?
Yeah. So K-State has 6 guaranteed games left. Changed my mind. They're just going to win 1.
No, they won more than 1. I might win Saturday. I might win tomorrow. They might beat BYU and certainly Oklahoma State at home. They should win. They could go like that's the thing about their schedule. Like if they play like they did earlier in Big 12 play,
West Virginia and Oklahoma State. They already played OSU twice.
Oh, that's right.
Split.
Yeah. I was at the home game. What am I talking about? I meant West Virginia.
Yeah.
Like-
That's the only win I'm giving
They're a
them.
crappy team in the conference.
They have BYU, obviously, West Virginia, Cincinnati, and then Kansas and Iowa State. So I just give them West Virginia.
No, man, I see what you're saying, Spencer. Like, this is not an easy schedule.
On current form, yeah, but you got to think they protect their home court a little better. I think they get at least 2 of those home games.
I'm going to give you a bold prediction here. They get a road win. They beat Cincinnati.
Beat Cincinnati.
I think Cincinnati has kind of hit a wall. I think we all expected that it was going to be a tough start to the year for all the newcomers in the Big 12. I think it's been a tougher end. I think Cincinnati has hit a wall.
Yeah, and I think K-State can win on Saturday. I like BYU. Ali Khalifa looks like he has a cold at all times and is shaped like a pear, and he goes out and he's balls. I respect him forever for that. They might be without Spencer Johnson. His wife had a baby. So, BYU probs, hashtag.
Yeah.
But they might be without one of their best 3-point shooters. Like, is their 3-point shooting going to travel? K-State's defended the 3-point line pretty well all year. If BYU doesn't shoot the 3, I don't know how they win games. So that's a winnable game. Like, I could see them going 3-2 at best. I really could.
Coming up on the other side of this timeout, the NFL salary cap number and franchise tag numbers for this year are out. Big numbers across the board. We'll tell you what they are next on 580 Sports Talk. The NFL today announced how big the salary cap will be for this coming season. Not the 242 that was originally expected, not the 250 that was reported earlier in the week, $255 million per team. That is a lot. That is a gigantic increase.
Shout out media deals and Amazon.
Yeah.
Shout out the Swifties.
That too.
Yeah, no kidding. So the reasoning for this from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, this is how he phrased it. The unprecedented $30 million increase in this year's cap is the result of the full repayment of all amounts advanced by the clubs and deferred during the COVID pandemic, as well as the increase in media revenue for 2024. That's nice. I didn't know that money was coming back to the teams. I guess my assumption was just that money was gone from the cap and they essentially had to restart after COVID. No, it's all back. So that's absolutely massive across the NFL now. So for the Chiefs, all of a sudden, that tacks on about 15 million more than we originally thought, 17 million more than we originally thought they were going to end up in cap space. That might allow them to add, and again, I'm not saying they're going to go add Christian Wilkins and Mike Evans or something, but that may allow them to go get, a B plus A minus single free agent along with keeping one of their own stars as opposed to just getting those 1-year deal guys.
And I think the biggest thing is it makes it more likely that you keep Jones and Snead. Like that to me is the primary mission of the Chiefs front office anyway, is let's put together competitive offers and see if we can't keep both of these guys. Even if it's Snead on the tag, this makes tagging Snead a little bit more palatable in addition to doing something long-term with Chris Jones. So I still don't want to put a number on it because I don't want to give false hope or I don't want to be Debbie Downer with regards to how likely or not it is that both Jones and Snead are back next year. But I think it's a higher likelihood because of that bigger cap number than it was beforehand.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's totally fair. Speaking of tagging L'Jarius Snead, the franchise tag for cornerbacks went way up, almost $2 million increased in terms of the value of the franchise tag for cornerbacks, $19.8 million. So if you want to tag L'Jarius Snead, that's going to cost you nearly $20 million against the salary cap this year.
Might be then more prudent to just get something done with him.
I mean, I would. What is the good reasoning for not trying to keep that dude around for a 4-year deal?
The only thing I can think of is if you are concerned enough about his injury history and the nagging knee and calf injuries that he's dealt with that you don't think he'd make it to the end of a 4-year deal. That is purely speculation on my part. I want to make clear that I am purely speculating based upon the fact that he really didn't participate in training camp very much. And they were really cautious and careful with him injury-wise and load managed him throughout the season. Nobody's going to know about his health better than the Chiefs team doctors, right? Mm-hmm. And if they've got medicals on L'Jarius Snead that suggest this is a chronic issue, this is not going to get a whole lot better, this is something that will probably affect him more as he ages, and a 4-year deal would be a real problem because by the end of year 4, we don't think he'd be a regular contributor, and that could hurt our salary cap. That would be, to me, the only reason you don't say, hey, let's get something done, L'Jarius.
And, I mean, look, the Chiefs last year, they let Juju go when they really needed a wide receiver, and he had a good year in 22.
But they were concerned about his knee.
And I think
justifiably
so. They were proven to be correct. I thought this was an interesting take. Oh, go ahead, Spencer.
I was thinking, if you cut MVS and you cut Kadarius Toney, you can get roughly 16 million, roughly around 14 to 16 million back.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't want to give Tony his 5th-year option? That's around 15 million, depending on whether he hit the playtime bonuses, which I don't think he hit the playtime bonuses.
I don't believe he did.
I mean, you cut them, I don't know how much a dead cap is there for them, but their caps, the cap they're taking up is around 16 million total this year.
Yeah, for MVS, you're only taking about 2 million dead money, which is nothing.
So then you're right, probably around like 12 million that you free up.
Well, here's the question. This is something you proposed the other day, and we've heard Matt Derrick since say probably cutting MVS. Matt Verderame has said it. I've been under the assumption. If you've got this much space, do you keep MVS?
I
For
don't
the
know.
record, I would not.
Yeah,
I
I
would
don't
say
think so.
thanks
Unless
for the
you
memories.
restructure, unless he's willing.
Again, like
Yeah.
emotionally playoff MBS. We just won a Super Bowl with him, and he caught the winning he caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He caught the winning pass in the AFC Championship game. Like emotionally, you want to say yes. You want to say, "Hey, MBS, sorry we were so mean," but you have to consider the full body of work and what are you paying for relative to what are you getting.
Yeah, we also saw 17 games in the regular season.
Right.
I thought this was a really interesting perspective, by the way, real quick, from Eric Eager. He actually shared this the other day, a friend of the program from Sumer Sports, formerly Pro Football Focus. And it was shared again today with the cap number coming out. The value of cap space is asymmetrical. The lack of cap space is way worse than having an abundance of it being a good thing. That's probably really true. Like, if you look at teams that have a ton of cap this year, like the Bears, is that really a good thing? Like, if you are a team that is that bad and you've got all this cap space, like, how valuable is that? I mean, it's better than having no money, but is it really that great? Versus, I mean, honestly, the biggest reason why is it means your team sucks. You don't have any good players. That's one of the big reasons why you have that much cap space. Versus, you're the New Orleans Saints. You've got now an extra 13 or whatever it is $1 million to the cap that you weren't expecting this year. That is now added to your cap space for next year. You can restructure over $20 million of Derrick Carr's contract,
Which they did
today. You're still 40 plus million over. And they're bad.
Yeah.
They're not good. They're not fun. They're not young. They're nothing. Like, that is a disaster because you can't. Well, the cap is fake. All you need is good accountants, all of that. You still need to be able to put together a competitive roster.
Right.
And you can't like that. So I thought that was really interesting by Eric, and I think he's spot on about it. Because really, more than anything, your cap is a reflection of the kind of team you have. Like the Chiefs, you're flirting around right at level pretty much all year. You've got your stars on big contracts. You've got enough to add these supplemental pieces, the Mike Edwards, the Drew Tranquils of the world.
That's what a well-run franchise looks like.
Yeah.
That's what a franchise who isn't pretending that the salary cap is fake operates like.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Saints operated like it was just something they could work around for a decade. And for the time that they had a Hall of Fame quarterback, it kind of was.
And vice versa. There's a reason the Jaguars and the Bears and the Lions and, sorry, Spencer, the Commanders, there's a reason those teams always have a ton of cap.
Yeah, like, oh, wow, you got $80 million to the cap. Yeah, because you have players good enough to pay a lot of money to.
Yeah.
And so then you go and give those big dollars to, like, Christian Kirk, and the cycle perpetuates.
Well, and for the Commanders, they got rid of Sweat.
Save some space. More cap space. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, we've got some Royals baseball to get to. Matt Derrick's going to join us, and we'll have this week's On Second Thought. That's coming up after the news, right back here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, all with you on this Friday afternoon. We've got some more Chiefs to get to a little bit later on this hour. Matt Derrick's going to join us for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We've also got our weekly Mea Culpa on Second Thought coming up. Plus, some Royals baseball here in just a few moments. Spring training in action for the Royals today. Really good start for the most part for one of the guys we talked about yesterday is having a lot to gain this spring. What's beyond disaster? Calamity? Complete and utter. I don't even know what word we could use to describe Jake Brentz's appearance today. So we'll touch on that coming up here in just a moment. Plus, another signing for the Royals I'm excited about. I am going to tell you why I am excited about Austin Nola. The first person to ever say that.
You are the first person to ever say that.
Literally. Maybe not even his parents.
How about this? There are 3 different guys with the last name Duffy who have appeared in this spring training game for the Royals and the Rangers. One of them is former Royal Danny Duffy. He's trying to make the Rangers.
Wow.
34 years old. Bury me a Royal. Oh, he's 35. Sorry. Gosh, how time flies. Hasn't pitched in the bigs in 3 years. Is that right?
I think
21 was the last time he pitched
with the Dodgers.
No.
Oh,
that was with the Royals still.
Oh,
he got hurt and he got traded to the Dodgers, but he never got healthy enough to pitch for them down the stretch and hasn't been healthy enough to pitch anywhere. I don't even see. Like, did he kick around in the minors somewhere? Doesn't look like he did. Man.
Wow.
Danny's one of the guys I'll always root for. I really liked watching Danny Duffy pitch. I know he's got, a lot of Royals fans have a soft spot for him. As somebody who covered the team, a guy who, dealt with some real stuff and struggled in a real human way. He had a pretty well-publicized DUI incident at one point in his career, but was always very human, very relatable, and
great dog.
Also wore a bear suit and tremendous baseball dog. Yes, has pitched in the minor leagues each of the last 2 years, made 24 appearances, in fact, for Double-A Frisco last year in the Rangers system, 4 appearances with Round Rock, pitched to a 3.28 ERA, all in relief. So pitched in the Winter League in Puerto Rico this year, too. So, man, good luck. I'd like to see the Duff man back on a big league mound. That'd be cool.
Do you remember?
Game's better with guys like him in it.
Do you remember when he wore a Minot State basketball jersey to a press conference?
I do remember that.
Yeah, Jake was freaking out about it. He's like, oh my God, Minot State, what, D2, how? Turns out he was best friends with the guy who played for the Beavers.
Also, former Royal Matt Duffy is trying to stick with the Rangers, and the Royals have veteran reliever Tyler Duffy with an E, who has also appeared in the game.
Too many Duffys.
Game's only 3.5 innings old. We've already seen 3 Duffys, almost a Duffy per inning.
I don't ever need to watch Matt Duffy play again. There are so many Royals that have played for this team in recent memory that I just never need to see play again. Matt Duffy on the list.
Matt Duffy is the Chris Owings of Chris Getz's.
Not to forget about the Ryan Goins of the world, who I'm sure is in that equation as well.
That's who I meant. Ryan Goins.
This has nothing to do with the Royals, but it does have to do with the team they're facing in the Rangers.
Okay.
So I see it every year on different teams. But during the Nats' heyday of 2012 to 2019, because they're no longer in it, they drafted a lot of decent pitching mid-early rounds. Well, do you know what they did with a lot of that pitching?
Traded it to the Rangers.
Traded it across the league. Lucas Giolito, the guy off the top of my head. But Dane Dunning, I believe is who it is. He was drafted by the Nationals. And when I used to play MLB The Show, I was a big prospect geek. I would download the rosters of the prospects for my franchise or whatever it was.
The OSFM, the Operation Sports Full Minors. OSFM, very familiar with those.
So I would bring up my top prospects or whatever, but I just remember all these guys being in, over the last few years, just seeing guys get starts across the league that were drafted by the Nats that they traded away to get guys I think Adam Eaton, they traded away a decent pitcher.
By the way, before we get too deep into Royals talk here, we'd love to get your texts, 785-272-9429.
We'd love to confirm that our text line is back working.
It is not. I texted it, unless it just doesn't like my phone.
Entirely possible. We may have blocked you inadvertently.
I've never texted before, so.
Well, yeah, we preemptively blocked it. No, I'm just kidding. So the text line we're hoping is going to work. But if you can't text in, find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. Yeah,
or just go out on your patio and yell really loud.
Yeah, that works. Maybe we'll hear it. Who knows?
You can comment on the Facebook stream too. If you're watching on Facebook, you can leave comments there. We see those.
Twitter.
On Twitter. If you're if you're watching us on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk on Twitter, you can comment there. We can see it that way. So lots of ways you can interact with us on that magical device in your pocket.
So the guy that I took over for at my last job, he was retiring from radio. He's in his 50s. Really nice guy. But we didn't have a text line. He gave out his personal phone number on the air and had people text him. So that was something I could not do.
Look,
I will not be doing that.
That is cool. That's such a community kind of thing that I think is awesome. There is no chance you degenerates are getting my phone number.
Exactly. That's
no way.
That's
no
exactly
chance.
what I thought.
That's really funny though.
Yeah.
By the way, what's not funny? I'm looking at the 2019 Royals right now.
Nothing was funny about the 2019 Royals, man.
Here are some names.
No.
Humberto Arteaga. Ryan McBroom.
The Broom Man. Yes.
Nick Deeney.
Oh, catcher. Yeah.
We talked about this guy yesterday. Kelvin Gutierrez.
Third baseman.
Maybreeze Valoria.
Guy, he turned up somewhere last year.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Yeah, it was Cleveland?
I think it was. It was Cleveland last year. He also spent 75 plate appearances with the Rangers the year before.
How about that? Good for him.
In 4 plate appearances in 10 games with Cleveland, he had no hits. Walked once, though. I mean, this is Eric Mejia.
Yeah, I vaguely remember him.
Frank Schwindel.
Cub legend.
Oh, God, that dude.
Is he even still with the Cubs? Or is he gone?
No, he was with the Royals after the Cubs.
No.
Oh, no, he was. Oh, I'm sorry. I had it backwards.
No.
Yes, he was a Cubs first baseman. He sucked. I was very glad when he was gone. They replaced him with another former Royal, Eric Hosmer, who was also terrible.
Shout out to the man who Jake could never properly pronounce, Chesler Cuthbert. Jake called him Cutbirth for years.
Yeah, he did. Cutbirth.
Didn't even bother to try and correct him.
The starting rotation for the Royals that year, by the way, 6 guys listed by Baseball Reference as being main rotation pitchers. Jacob Junis, or as Britt's dad called him, Jakob Junis. Brad Keller, who was 7-14, but his ERA was in the low 4s. He wasn't awful. The Spark Man,
my favorite,
Glenn Sparkman, ERA in the 6s. Danny Duffy got 23 starts. Mike Montgomery started 13 games
I think
that
they
year.
traded him or they acquired him. They traded Martin Maldonado for him, if I remember right.
Yeah. 2020 was the last he pitched in the major leagues, Mike Montgomery. Famous, of course, for getting the last out of the 2016 World Series. Can you name the other Royals starter?
2019?
2019. Made 18 starts at a 4.80 ERA.
No, that was the year they traded Homer Bailey, right?
They had Homer Bailey that year.
Yeah, Homer Bailey. That was good enough to get the Royals to be able to trade him for something.
Yeah.
Do I remember what that something is? No.
God, that team sucked. They were so bad. They lost 103 games that year.
Yep.
Not so great.
They lost 3 more than that last year.
This year's Royals, then their spring training opener. Good start for Daniel Lynch. Had a scoreless first inning, leadoff walk, but didn't allow a run.
Worked around it, and most encouragingly, 91-93 with the fastball. But for your first start of the spring, you take that.
Yeah, you can live with
Hopefully that plays up a little bit. Like I've said, Daniel Lynch at 95, intrigued. Daniel Lynch at 89-90, little less intrigued. Daniel Lynch at 91-93, well, maybe we can work with that.
Jake Brents. Oh, dear.
Not a great first impression for Jake Brents. They say when you're coming back from Tommy John, the last thing to come back is your command. And Jake Brents didn't have great command before the Tommy John surgery. And so I can't say that I'm terribly surprised that he went out and walked 4 of the 6 batters he faced and threw a wild pitch.
Yeah.
Also committed a pitch timer violation, according to the box score.
Love that. That's really solid. Drew Waters hit a home run and also made a diving catch.
So Waters is playing center field, which is interesting. I think it's going to be probably between him and Kyle Isbell for the at-bats there, I would imagine. So a good start for Waters. It's a wild lineup today. So Vinny Pasquantino started. He's 0 for 2, hit the ball hard, a one-hop ground out to the first baseman his first time up. I don't know what he did his second time up. But like Garrett Hampson is starting this game at shortstop. Nelson Velasquez is in left field. Michael Massey's at second. Nick Lofton is getting DH at bats. I still think they're going to move Lofton. Lofton is a big leaguer to me, but they signed Garrett Hampson and Adam Frazier to do the thing that I'm pretty sure Nick Lofton could do for the league minimum right this second. I still think Lofton's a trade chip, and I don't think the Royals are done building their roster. And I think they're going to use Lofton to get another reliever, maybe a back-end guy.
I think that makes sense. I think that makes a lot of sense, in fact, for the Kansas City Royals.
Mike Brasso, who you may have forgotten was a Royal, because I sure did. He's playing third base. Tyler Gentry's in right field. Sandy Leone, speaking of journeyman catchers.
Sandy Leone. I remember him.
Yeah, let's all remember some guys.
I remember him as a Red Sox.
Remember him as a Nationals prospect back in the day.
Yeah, he's doing the catching today. So we mentioned Daniel Lynch, the fourth, scoreless first. Jake Brent's had a bit of a nightmare. Was relieved by, I believe, Jerry DePoto's son.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah, and Jonah DePoto. That's Jerry's son, all right. Clean innings of relief, mostly for Tyler Duffy and Sam Long, a couple of guys who the Royals brought in on minor league invites. So, like, there's not a lot exciting here. The stuff that is noteworthy is Daniel Lynch made it through clean and healthy and was throwing in the low 90s, which is the bare minimum we need to see him at. And Vinny P hit the ball hard, didn't have to run the bases afterwards. So ideal plate appearance for the first day of spring training.
Yeah, no kidding. Nice and easy for him.
And Drew Waters homer. That too. Like the pop is real for Waters. We know that. I don't think he's the defender that Isbell is in center field, but the power's legit. He switch hits, so it's nice to have an advantage against either left-handed or right-handed pitching with him. In theory, the glove is good, although again, I don't think it's as good as Isbell's. The question for Waters is he going to make enough contact? And the answer to this point in his career has been no, he will not. So that's what has to change. You just have to get the bat to the ball more often for the Royals to really feel comfortable with him.
The Royals made a move this week. Sign another catcher, Austin Nola. Brother Aaron, much more famous, much more good at baseball at his individual job. Nola, a catcher, journeyman guy, not really in his career been anything all that special.
Played a lot of different positions. He played like every position for the Mariners except center fielder and shortstop back in 2019.
Yeah.
So have glove will travel, but his primary position has been catcher.
For his career as an offensive player, OPS plus just under league average, which is 100. He's at 96 for his career. I mean, backup catchers, that kind of thing. It is what it is.
Well, going 19 for 130 at the plate last year really kind of torpedoed his career numbers.
Yeah.
Because coming into that, like, he was the guy who was, 2020's fake, but he was in demand at the trade deadline in 2020. And the Padres included him. That was like a 7-player trade. Ty France was in that deal, who's gone on to play mostly well, I think, in Seattle. That was a wild trade. But like those first 4 seasons, Nola was an above average offensive player. Hit 263, an OPS around 731, which corrected for the pitcher friendly environments of Seattle and San Diego. That put him about 5% above league average. Little bit of pop, not a lot. 23 home runs and 919 at bats, but like, that's a useful player. You can hit a little and you can play every position. That's like a useful guy to have at the end of your bench. And then last year he didn't play everywhere. He only caught, and he did not hit a lick. 19 of 130. If you're imagining, if you can't do the math in your head, that's a $146. So Brandon, I like my big leaguers to be able to hit your weight.
Yeah,
better
I think
than
that's
your
fair.
weight.
I think that's entirely fair. How much do you think I weigh?
$170.
Wow. Well done.
Hey, maybe I should open up a carnival stand.
I
I'm
think
good at this.
I think officially my listed weight is 174 pounds. That has not changed since I was 17 years old. I just use the same number over and over every time I get my license renewed.
Yeah, I do that too. Mine's pretty aspirational at this point.
So, do the Royals need a third catcher? Because you've already got Salvi, obviously. You've already got Freddie Fermin, who JJ Piccolo has said he thinks is going to be on the big league club to start the season, and I would imagine that is going to indeed be the case. Now you sign Austin Nola. Do you need 3 catchers? Here is my question. This is why I'm excited about this. And
did they sign him to a major league
deal?
Major league deal.
Okay.
This is going to, unfortunately, work against someone that you were saying you still have some stock in just yesterday on the show. I think Salvador Perez should be a full-time designated hitter. I think and I understand that's going to make the Hall of Fame case more difficult whenever that day comes. Here's the thing. What is more important right now for Salvador Perez, the player, as a member of the Kansas City Royals? His bat or his catching ability?
His bat.
His
catching ability has trended in the wrong direction for the last couple of years, if we're being honest.
Which guy in his 30s who's played a ton of baseball.
Yeah, not just
you get it.
Not just his age, how much he's played.
And that's even with some significant injuries over time. He has still played a ton of baseball, and that bat is still dynamic. It's still got plenty of pop. It is still very valuable. He is going to have his career elongated by being a designated hitter more and more. To me, if I'm in control here, I have full czar powers over the Kansas City Royals this year. I'm moving Salvi to DH full-time. Freddie Fermin and Austin Nola are my catchers with, I don't know what the platoon share will be, but those are my 2 catchers. And I'm starting Nelson Velasquez in the outfield because you got to keep his bat out there. Unfortunately, that means someone is the odd man out. And to me, that someone ends up being MJ Melendez because you can't have 2 guys who are black hole defenders out there. And frankly, Nelson Velasquez is just, he's pretty bad. MJ Melendez is like bottom of all of baseball.
Cover
bad.
Your eyes. Yeah.
MJ this past year, you've heard of probably stats like defensive runs saved or ultimate zone rating, things like that. Baseball Savant, so MLB, they've got one called outs above average. Where do you think MJ Melendez ranked in outs above average last year?
I'm going to say he was pretty below average.
2nd percentile in Major League Baseball. There are 100 percentiles, in case you were curious. He ranked in the 2nd. He is unplayable as a fielder. You can only keep one. And I'm not saying, get rid of him, but to me, in that scenario, if there was maybe a decent bullpen arm that you could add who could be a reliable piece for that bullpen or something else of value that this team needs, maybe that's what MJ Melendez turns into. And I know it probably sounds like I've got some sort of grudge. I'm trying to get rid of the guy. It's not personal. That's just what I would do given the personnel you now have.
I could see that. I could certainly see that outcome. I could also see an outcome where the Royals would rather Salvi still catch 4 to 5 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's less, but they want to play Fermin a lot because Fermin was a pleasant surprise last year. I don't think anybody expected him to come up from AAA as a 28-year-old and go out and be an above average offensive player, slug 460, and provide the juice that he did with his bat. In addition to the numbers suggest he was an above average defender. At least some of them do. Mm-hmm. Lies, damn lies, statistics, right? Nola does have an option, which I think is significant because he can be a guy that the Royals park in Omaha in case there's an injury to Sal, in case there's an injury to Fermin, in case they really do need that third catcher. It's just, if Nola makes the team, then it does suggest that they're going to DH Salvi a lot, and it does make it harder to imagine at bats for Melendez/Velasquez. And maybe you end up platooning those guys, or you play Melendez against right-handers, you play Velasquez against the lefties. I don't think this is a sign to me necessarily that they're looking to give up on MJ, but it could be a sign that, again, I don't think this team is done making moves. Maybe MJ's a guy that would have some interest on the trade market if the Royals were really trying to bring in some more pieces. Maybe he's a guy. Maybe I don't know about Fermin. He's got a lot of team control, but I don't think you want to walk away from a guy who might be your everyday catcher for the next 2-3 years at pre-arb prices. So it's an interesting move. And because Nola still has that option, it gives the Royals a little bit of flexibility. So they don't have to commit one way or another on this, but they probably needed a better insurance policy on their 40-man roster, I would say, than what they had at catcher. Because remember, they brought up a bunch of catchers last year, and I think all those guys, I don't think any of them are on the 40-man. If I remember correctly, like a lot of those guys got removed from the 40-man.
Are you talking about catchers?
Yes.
It's just the 3 of them on the 40-man.
So yeah, they didn't even have another catcher on the 40-man. They were gonna have to add one at some point, and maybe this is just who they add, because shout out to old Logan Porter and Tyler Cropley, but
or even Leone.
I don't. Yeah, Sandy Leone brought into camp and NRI, but I don't think those were, like, Nola's a better third catcher option. And then the fact that he could be on the roster just not as a third catcher, just as, another versatile piece. Matt Quatrero comes from where? Tampa Bay, right? Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay is all about being flexible with your position, being able to play all over the diamond. So they value a piece like that.
The Royals have done a great job of making floor-raising moves this year, having a real major league rotation. I think the batting order is going to be at least solid. The bullpen has gotten better. These are things that should raise the bare minimum floor for the Royals. The next step for this team, honestly, is not, and over the course of a baseball season, every team brings up the who guys. Like that's just what happens. You have huge rosters, a lot of games, there are injuries, etc. The Royals have just had so many of those guys. Like, and I don't mean to be insulting, and he actually played decently well this past year, but like, not having a Dairon Blanco or the next Dairon Blanco play 69 games would probably be a benefit for the Royals going forward. Like, fewer plate appearances for Tyler Cropley. I know he only had 7, but you know what I'm talking about. These guys who take up a bunch of plate appearances because you just need bodies, because you traded away decent players or you didn't have them in the first place. That's the next thing for me. You've got to cut the chaff off a little bit. And I think that's the next step for continuing to improve this Royals roster. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, we've got our On Second Thought for the week, and then Matt Derrick will join us for our Chiefs Insider. Coming up on 580 Sports Talk. on second thought time to make up for a bad take. Dan, what you got?
I don't remember if I've done
on
this
second thought, I
already.
had no bad take.
That wouldn't be the first time. Unfortunately, I can't think of one take that continues to look bad in retrospect. I can't remember if I've done this already, but somehow, some way, Iowa State keeps winning Big 12 games, and they're good, and they might win the league. I don't think they're going to win the league, and I don't think they have a first-team All-Big 12 player, and I'm still not buying any of their stock in March, but I thought they were going to fall off by now. And they haven't. They're playing well. They're playing hard. They've got some real talent. They got shooters. They got bigs who are functional. It's a good team, and I didn't think they would be. I thought they would be a flash in the pan, like they were. Like by this time last year, they were completely toast. After a really good, promising start to January in the Big 12, they were cooked by the time this part of the year rolled around. Then they got rolled in their NCAA tournament game. They are not cooked. At least to this point. So I must continue to admit my wrongness about the Iowa State Cyclones.
Spencer?
It's not necessarily a take. It's, I guess, relatively to something that's not normal for me.
Okay.
I'm going to make a long story shorter. So basically, you guys are on Twitter a lot more than me. Dan specifically. A lot of my, because he talks about, Dan talks about it. No, in my defense, Dan says I'm online a lot. Like he's told me those quotes a lot since I've lived here.
Wow.
And that's nothing against you, Dan. It's just like your tweets blow up.
Nerd.
No, your tweets blow up, right? Your tweets have blown up.
Spencer, you talked to my wife before you said this. You made
No.
this charge.
No. So I tweet thinking my tweet's never going to blow up. But yesterday I tweeted about this is where the long story is going to become short. So I used to work in West Virginia, obviously. The West Virginia, just like Keisha, the West Virginia version of Keisha, not very well liked. They're aligned with one media company, and that's it. Basically, they're moving their state championship from a high school field that's like a community field for football to a D2 college, the University of Charleston's football field that is just a dump, a literal dump. So I tweeted about that yesterday thinking, you know what? No one's going to see my tweet, right? I'm going to tweet about the WVSSAC because I'm no longer covering West Virginia sports. I'm not scared that they're going to take away a media credential. So I go and tweet a strongly worded tweet that says, this is the most WVSSAC / West Virginia thing ever. You literally had a great opportunity with WVU and Marshall because there's a bid to move the state championships there for football. To have the student athletes play at the best of the best in the state and you choose a dump of Lately, do better. And I added them. Somehow that tweet blew up and it's been viewed over 3,600 times and it made it on a news article because somebody that I know that works at said media company that's aligned with them DM'd me saying why West Virginia and Marshall didn't get it. So now I'm in this article and I'm now the West Virginia High School Sports Insider as a sports host, producer, update anchor here at WIBW in Topeka, Kansas.
WVSSAC is a horrible name.
West Virginia Secondary Schools Athletic Committee.
That stinks.
Yeah, like so the KSHSAA, we have a way to pronounce that. We call it Keisha. What do you call that? WivSac?
They just say the SSAC.
That sucks.
Yeah.
On second thought, they should have come up with a better name.
Yeah. But
that's what I'm taking
on
away
second
from
thought, I can't tweet anymore and I guess just my actual thoughts anymore. I really have to see what's going on because apparently my tweets blow up.
Mine was also social media related. I tweeted yesterday that I don't care about the new NCAA video game. I'm happy for people who are happy about it, but I'm not going to buy a PS5 or a new Xbox, and so it doesn't really mean anything to me. I had multiple people tweet and text me and say, this take sucks, bro. Like,
see, I want one, but I'm not going to do it.
Like, enjoy the game. No problem at all. I just bought a house. If I can afford food in the next week, I'm going to be feeling like I'm a king, okay? Like, I don't have $500 to spend on a gaming console to then spend another $60 on a video game. I can't do it. It ain't for me. You are going to enjoy it. You are going to have so much fun, and I'm going to be very happy for you.
I pay a mortgage and I have a PS5. Look at me, Dan Rockefeller over here.
I'm happy for everyone who's happy about it. It's just nothing for me.
Have I eaten beans out of a can for dinner the last 6 nights? Who's to say?
Matt Derrick is going to join us next, coming up on 580 Sports Talk. let's go to Kansas City, where we catch up with our good friend Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Go find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course, his great work covering the Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, how has the start of the offseason been treating you?
Not too bad. I mean, there's nothing been going on in Chiefs country, right? It's just been just a quiet week or so. I mean, nothing going on.
Oh, yeah. Very quiet, very subdued last couple of days. Well, why don't we just dive right in and get to some of the personnel news for the Chiefs this week? Appears that the Chiefs have a new punter, Matt Araiza, the formerly known as the punt god. We know Tommy Townsend has Drew Rosenhaus as his agent. He's a free agent going into this offseason. He will be officially come middle of next month. Matt Araiza probably going to be pretty cheap. We also know, while he was dropped from the rape lawsuit that he was involved in that kept him out of the NFL the last 2 years, that is certainly still something that is going to linger with him, regardless of what the eventual outcome of that case was. What do you make of this signing for the Chiefs? Do they have any, reservations about adding Araiza to this roster? How did this all come together for Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, splitting it into kind of two conversations, for the off the field part of it, the Chiefs, for better or for worse, I mean, they do have a good reputation around the league as far as, doing their homework in situations like this and doing their due diligence on the backgrounds of free agents and players that they're bringing in. I mean, their system has not always been perfect. They've made some mistakes, and I think they would, admit to those. But in Araiza's case is you're very curious. I mean, the charges were dropped. There was a civil suit. There was a countersuit for defamation. Eventually, everything was dropped, and apparently no payment or no wrongdoing was ever admitted. No money changed hands. So, you could certainly say from the optics of it is that, the worst that maybe Matt Araiza was guilty of is bad judgment and putting himself into a position that he shouldn't have been in. You're hoping that's the best case scenario of it. And I think it was just a matter of time before, an NFL team, all of this basically got wrapped up in December. It was just a matter of time before an NFL team was probably going to take a chance on it, because the other half of the conversation is the on the field part of it. This guy has got an incredible leg. I mean, there's a reason why he's got that nickname. He looks like he could just absolutely be a generational kind of player at that position. And, the Bills selected him, never in the sixth round, coming as a free agent, ability to go to any club. I mean, if you're him, it couldn't be a better situation than going to the world champions who have a punter who's going to be a free agent and has got maybe the league's highest powered agent trying to get a contract for him. This should be a great situation for him.
So it's over for Tommy Townsend then?
I mean, I would never say never, but it's not. I mean, the Chiefs going out and signing a punter is certainly not a sign that they're optimistic. I mean, you would never bring in just camp competition for Tommy Townsend. So my expectation is that, that their feeling is that Tommy's probably going to leave. He's got a couple of rings now with the Chiefs. If he wants to be the highest paid punter in the league, I wouldn't begrudge him of that, but I don't imagine that's possible in Kansas City.
Other moves that you would expect the Chiefs to make, does it feel like there's anyone else on this team who, and a couple of teams have already made some announcements that, hey, we're going to release so-and-so player before we get to the start of the new league year? I would imagine MVS would be a part of that, and that's nothing personal. It's just business, and you say, hey, MVS, thanks for the great memories in the 2 Super Bowls. Go enjoy maybe getting one last multi-year contract somewhere. Is there anyone else who feels like might be a pre-new league year cut for this team?
I'm not really sure there's anybody that jumps out. And, and the one thing is that, especially with the news today about where the salary cap is coming out for next year, it's going up about maybe 12, 13 million more than a lot of people thought that it would, going up 30 million overall from last year. So the Chiefs, technically speaking, to just be under the cap at the beginning of the new league year, don't need to make any moves. I mean, they would be under the cap. The only reason that they would want to make some moves would simply be able to free up more cap space to sign their own free agents or sign some other free agents. And, and they've got a few other players other than Marquez whom they could release and and he could be released before or after. I mean, sometimes the distinction between releasing a player before the beginning of the new league year on March 13th or after can sometimes be using the June 1 designation to kind of push it back any salary cap hits into the future. Marquez's contract really doesn't have that situation. There's other players, I mean, that kind of fit into that category, but I don't think that the Chiefs would release Joe Tooney to save any salary cap money. I mean, I think that's the guy that's going to stay in Kansas City. There could be, some other smaller moves that maybe I'm just not expecting. But, the other ones I think are going to be more about, maybe guys whose contracts are up and won't be back. We're focusing on the big guys like Snead and Chris Jones, but there's others. James Winchester's a free agent. And, is he going to be back, or is that a position that the Chiefs feel like, well, maybe we can get younger and save a few $100,000 by getting somebody that's cheaper than James?
Our guest is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, and he joins us as our Chiefs insider every Friday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. You can find Matt's work again at ChiefsDigest.com and find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, do you think the Chiefs are approaching this offseason with the belief that they can keep both L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones, or do you think they're prepared to go into 2024 without at least one, or if not both of them?
I feel fairly confident that they've got plans for both scenarios. I mean, I think that plan A would be going into this offseason, and this was the plan that they would have had before the Super Bowl, would be to say, hey, plan A is that we're going to go all in on a three-peat, and this team is going to do whatever it takes to keep the core nucleus together. That's not just, Jones and Snead. That may be a few other free agents too. Maybe you try and keep a Mike Dana. Maybe you try and keep a Willie Gay. It goes on and on. You maybe rework a deal for like a Justin Reed. But the question was just going to be, how much is the cap going to go up? How much is ownership willing to throw in to go after that? Because it would require the Chiefs to lay out a lot more cash in 2024 than they would in a normal season. I mean, and that would be the sticking point to me, is just, how much is the Hunt family and Clark Hunt willing to invest in this team to go after the three-peat? If the total money layouts in 24 is no object, then the Chiefs can do it. I mean, that they've got a plan for it. I mean, they could absolutely keep both those players. I think that the bigger thing is that if there is a budget restraint and there's just only so far that Brett Veach can go, then they have a plan for that as well. So it really just depends, on a couple of things. And one is obviously ownership and how much money they're willing to spend. And two, it depends on the players and how much they're willing to settle for. If both of those players want top of the market dollars, I mean, if Chris Jones wants $30 million plus, if L'Jarius Sneed makes wants $24 million plus or something like that, I mean, there's a scenario where both could be back, one or the other could be back, or neither one of them could be back. Although you would expect that the Chiefs would at least use the franchise tag on L'Jarius to at least kind of keep him under team control for another year.
Of the veterans the Chiefs brought in this year on one-year deals, we can include Derrick in the mix, but guys like Drew Tranquil, guys like Mike Edwards, guys like Donovan Smith, how likely is it that any of those players come back? And if the Chiefs are able to bring any of those players back, do you think it's another one-year deal type scenario? Or do you think there exists an opportunity to sign any of those guys long-term?
Yeah, I think they're probably all individual case basis. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, the Chiefs was what they got from Drew Tranquil this year. If they were able to lock him up long term at an affordable price, I think they would absolutely jump at it. It's just, can they do that? I mean, my understanding was last year, the Drew was maybe looking and thinking he could be in kind of that $5 to $8 million category, and and he ended up coming to the Chiefs for a lot less than that. If he's still looking for that, if he's looking for, decent money as a linebacker payday goes and looking for a multi-year deal, it might not be there with the Chiefs. I mean, I could certainly see them going to a certain price and going multiple years, but they might not be able to break the bank. For Mike Edwards, probably similar deal. I could see them willing to pay him for a year, but maybe not a multi-year deal. And Donovan Smith, it's really going to just come down, I think, more than anything is, where do they feel they are with Wanye Smith or Wanye Morris, excuse me. if Wanye is ready to play, if he's ready to be their left tackle of the future, then I think they'd be very comfortable going in and just going into him into the season as a starter, and you'd get younger and cheaper there. But I think a lot of it's just going to depend on how much they feel about Wanye, and if the alternative is having somebody to be the backup behind Wanye just in case he doesn't work out or they need to go a different direction. I don't know if Donovan Smith would be that guy. They might look for somebody else to be their swing tackle behind him.
Our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick, is our guest on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Matt, we talked a little about salary cap earlier, but do you think that the uptick in what was expected for what the salary cap is, do you think that'll maybe change how the Chiefs draft this year, knowing they could potentially get some more free agents in signing wise? Do you think, we talked about that a little earlier on the show, what's your take on it?
Yeah, that is interesting because, with it going up that extra kind of $12, $13 million, I mean, that can be a lot of players. I mean, that, 12 or 13 million, what we're talking about contract wise, I mean, that would easily be able to say, keep a Drew Tranquill and a Mike Edwards. You could keep a few veterans here. So, if you're able to, keep some of that linebacker group together, maybe that's a position that you really don't have to look at in the draft. And now you can look at, a different direction. If you're going in and you've decided, hey, Wanye Morris is your starter, and maybe you got Lucas Niang as a backup, and now you feel like maybe tackle isn't a huge need, maybe that doesn't become a position that you have to target. So I could certainly see where, being able to either keep their own free agents or even find some values out there, because that's where the Chiefs, I mean, really kind of, picked up both, Tranquill and Edwards last year. Those positions might very well have been on their draft board, but once they were able to get those guys in kind of the second and third waves of free agency, they were no longer, real needs. So you can see how having a little bit of extra money and sometimes finding those guys that fall through the cracks that are available later in free agency can really change your draft board.
Finishing things up with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, joining us for our Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Go check out Matt's phenomenal work covering the Kansas City Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com. We discussed this a little bit earlier in the show today too, Matt, that the Chiefs are always willing to be open for business when it comes to moving picks, whether it's moving up, moving back, etc. Right now, there's only, I think, 5 that are guaranteed. They're ones in rounds through 1 through 4. Then they have a 5th they got back in a trade, and then they have a 7th that was a conditional pick as well. Don't know if that was going to convey to Houston or not. Does this feel like a year, even though the Chiefs have always been willing to move up, like maybe they'll play it a little bit more conservative and angle for trade backs just to make sure they have as many depth pieces as possible, knowing there are going to be a lot of guys with a lot of big contracts on this team next year?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, we all know, Brenton, that Brett Veach loves to move around.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, there's no doubt. Now, does he have the currency? Because he's already shipped away a 6th in 2025. So he's only got 6 picks in 2025 right now. So, and that's not, barring any, compensation picks that you might get too. So there could be some additions there. But, yeah, I mean, where the Chiefs are picking and kind of what, Veach's strategy has been, I mean, at 32, they would certainly be in the market to go either way. I mean, I could certainly see them trying to move up. I could certainly see them being willing to move down into the maybe early second and pick up some more draft picks. At the same time, sitting at 64, I would almost be stunned because Brett Veach almost never seems to stay put in the second round. So I think he would absolutely. There's a player that they really like. I think, especially somebody that's got a late first, early second kind of grade. I think he would absolutely be willing to try and move up there. But then you hit into this team and this scouting department and personnel group has been so successful in, the day 3 that I think you'd really like to kind of bulk up some of those day 3 picks. So, hey, if they were able to move back in the first to pick up some day 3 picks, if they're able to even trade back a notch in the 3rd and 4th round to get some more day 3 picks, I think they would be all for that because we obviously have seen how well they've mined the 7th round. And right now, they might not have any picks in the 7th round, but, picking them up is pretty affordable and wouldn't surprise me if they tried.
Last one I've got for you, Matt, real quick here. Outside of receiver, because I think most people believe the Chiefs will take at least one pass catcher in the draft this year. What is one position you are certain the Chiefs are going to add someone in via the draft?
I'm going to say defensive line for sure, and it wouldn't even surprise me if they both went edge and tackle because even if they get Chris Jones re-signed, I don't think they're going to be able to bring back everybody from last year's team. I mean, you've got plenty of other free agents: Mike Vanna, Tershawn Wharton, Derrick Nottie, all free agents. A few other guys too in that kind of group. There's no guarantees you can get them all back. So I think that's a position that I wouldn't be surprised if they hit both those spots, or at least ended up using multiple picks on the defensive line.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. Make sure you also check out the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel for plenty of Matt's video content, including the 41 is the Mike podcast. You can find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. He joins us every Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider. We appreciate it as always, Matt. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Sounds great. And I'll be able to deliver everything from the combine for you next week. So we'll have plenty to talk about NFL-wise going on.
Love it. Matt, thank you so much, man.
Take care, guys.
That's Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. He is Spencer Dupuis, and we are here with you up until 5:30-ish today. Final day of the week. Thank you so much for spending some of your afternoon hours with us, whether you're listening on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, online at 580wibw.com, or via our YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our channel on YouTube. Appreciate all of you who are listening along or watching along with the show today. We've got some high school hoops coming up tonight. 5:30 game one tip-off start time. That's the scheduled start time anyway. As the Highland Park Scots, the running Scots and the Lady Scots, try to end the regular season on a high note against KC Washington, which in girls action is a co-op this year with Kansas City Schlegel. Should be a fun one. Always exciting. I mean, we love all of our teams in the city, but I will say I do love the way Highland Park plays. That up and down, just beat you into submission with the high-flying kind of offense. It's been fun, and they've had to adapt a little bit this year after so many seniors left from a year ago. It's been honestly extremely impressive, at least on the boys' side, what Mike Williams has done with that team this year. And man, Rob Brown, I cannot give Rob Brown enough credit and enough hype for what he has done with that Highland Park girls program. It has been awesome to watch unfold and should be a lot of fun tonight at Topeka West at the Charger Dome, where tonight's game will be played.
Yep, they are playing again at Topeka West as they continue to play their home games at the other 501 schools while their gym undergoes repairs. You can't be the running Scots and not go up and down the floor, right? And you can't be the running Scots to play a half-court game. So the Highland Park Scots playing the game that they play is no surprise. And I do like to watch them play, and they've got great shooters. They've got really springy athletes who can get up and down the floor and then get on and off the floor in a hurry, up and down. So they're quite a show, and I look forward to seeing them play tonight. Highland Park girls haven't gotten to see. This will be my first look at the Lady Scots this year, and they've got some experienced veteran guards, a very talented freshman in the post, and Paramela Carter, who's averaging 18 and 10 as a freshman. That's pretty remarkable.
Incredible.
So they've obviously had a great season too, and it's senior night for both teams, so obviously the emotion that comes with that will be part of tonight's games as well. Very excited to have them both.
By the way, speaking of tempo, I was thinking of who are the slowest and fastest teams in college basketball, and you can get those numbers from Ken Pom, but I was trying to look up number of possessions per game. Who do you think is the fewest possessions per game in all of college basketball?
In all of college basketball?
All of college basketball. Don't think too hard about it.
Is it Virginia?
It is Virginia. Almost a possession and a half less per game than the team who's 361st. They have 63.1 possessions a game. That's it. 63 possessions a game.
That's tough.
That is crazy.
Wonder why they don't score much.
Bryant has the most at nearly 78 a game. So 17 more possessions per game if you watch Bryant versus watching Virginia. Like, that's approaching two different sports right there.
Right.
So you could call them the running Bulldogs. You could not call Virginia the running Cavs.
What are Grinnell's possession numbers? How many possessions per game does Grinnell get?
We can't count that high. I wonder if we can find D3 numbers for that.
D3 analytics.
Yeah, I don't have synergy, so I can't get that information truly in depth. I can tell you that their goal as part of the system is to get at least 100 shots per game, which would mean at least, close to 100 possessions. I know they're all, because they don't really offensive rebound.
No, they're still doing it, man. They're still scoring 110 points a game. Hey, 24 games in, 2,132 field goal attempts.
So I saw this earlier today at the D2 level. All right. Because I had this conversation with Brett Ballard, head coach of the Washburn men, a couple weeks back during the Washburn basketball coaches show, about how the MIAA, which as we know is the best conference in America, the scoring is so much lower. Like, Washburn for most of this season has been the number one scoring team in the MIAA. They're now third by a fraction of points. Washburn doesn't even make it into the top 200 in the country in scoring. Okay, yes, I'm sorry, in the top 200, not in the top 150 in scoring. And they have the arguably best offense or second best offense in the best conference in America. So we're talking about this those conferences on the East and West Coast, We play a little bit more defense than they do. So I was looking today. Spencer, you're familiar with Gannon University.
Yes, Gannon.
Yeah, they're a PSAC school, the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference. 104 points a game, 103.8 a game. I'm telling you this right now, and I don't mean to insult Shepherd or Gannon or any of what are the others? What Lock Haven? Any
IUP,
of the other? Yeah, Indiana,
Shippensburg.
Pennsylvania. No insults to them. If Washburn played in the PSAC, they'd win every game by 20 points. If Northwest played in the PSAC, it would win every game by 25.
Yeah, PSAC is definitely only known for their football.
Yeah, like just no defense at all. None. Like scoring 104 points in a 40-minute college basketball game is bananas.
Yeah, there's a reason you don't see like a lot of schools do it. There's a reason it turns heads when like what did Auburn put 104 on South Carolina the other night?
Yeah, they killed them.
Their lowest scoring game is 78 in Gannon. They have a 78, 79, 84, and then everything's above the 90s.
Washburn has cracked 80 once this month. And again, I mean, is on the fringes of an NCAA tournament berth. It's nuts. It really is crazy. It's like comparing, again, no insults to any school in particular, but it's like comparing the Big 12 to a decent mid-major conference. Like, it's just completely different basketball. Brad even told me that he had a coach who he knows who coaches an East Coast school who told him, I would never play in that league, man. I wouldn't coach in that league. I like to run. I like to get out and run and gun. I'm playing in that defense-heavy league. So.
Yeah, there's a spiritually Division II basketball is a little closer to junior college basketball than it is to Division I basketball.
Yeah, that's true. Like I'm just looking at the numbers right now.
Just stylistically speaking.
Oh, yeah.
Spiritually, maybe not the right term, but stylistically speaking, that's what you're getting in a lot of the Division II conferences.
Last night, Rogers State beat Central Oklahoma in double overtime with 102 points. Gannon scores 104 a game anyway, period.
That's wild.
Nova Southeastern, they're one of the better teams in the country, too, 103 a game. Like it's crazy. It's two different sports between the Midwest D2 basketball and the Coastal D2 basketball. Very similar again to the Big 12 and like the Pac-12. We're gonna get some college basketball here. You watched the Washington State-Arizona game last night?
I did not, no.
I saw the highlights on Twitter.
Saw the Cougs won.
Cougs did win. Man, that program has, that's incredible. Kyle Smith.
National Coach of the Year?
He should be. You know the last time Washington State made the NCAA tournament?
I think I do because I think I was there to see it. I think it was 08.
2008.
Yeah.
It has been 16 years for a Power 5 school.
They were in Denver for the first and second round, and I went and saw their second round game. I forget who they lost to. It was either like Notre Dame, Michigan State was there. I think Pitt was there. I don't remember who they lost to, but I remember seeing them lose. Shout out to Derrick Lowe.
You know who their coach was, of course, at the time?
Tony Bennett.
It's Tony Bennett. Heck of a coach. Yeah, they finished that year actually ranked 21st in the country. They lost in the Sweet 16. They actually made it through the second round.
They won their second round game. Who'd they beat in the second round?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. That's right.
Killed them. 61-41.
I remember that.
That's a Tony Bennett game right there.
It's coming back to me now. I may have had a few Coronas at Brooklyn's across the street from the Pepsi Center before that one, so memory's a bit hazy. But I was there.
They lost to eventual Kansas Jayhawks cannon fodder North Carolina in the Sweet 16.
There you go.
That, of course, was the year where KU dump trucked North Carolina in the Final Four.
That was the Billy Packer. This game is over with 10 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah.
And then it almost very much wasn't over because I think North Carolina got within like 4 at one point in the second half.
I never was a big Billy Packer guy. That moment, though, will live forever in KU lore. Forever.
Yes. When you get Billy Packer had seen a lot of basketball at that point. And for him to declare this game is over, there was like the under 12 media timeout, and he said it was over.
I remember hearing a story. I was still in school. We had someone come and speak to the.
It was 38-12. It is one of many entries in Billy Packer's Wikipedia page under the header controversy.
Just for saying it's over?
Yes.
That's funny. We had someone come speak to the sports staff at the KU radio station when I was a student. I was sharing a story about how their partner for I don't remember which big game it was, I think I might have even shared the story before, was a huge Billy Packer fan and was so excited that Vern and Billy Packer were calling a game for CBS at Allen Fieldhouse. And he went up to say, Billy Packer, I'm a huge fan, and shake his hand. Couldn't have been a bigger jerk to him. Just completely big-timed him. Like, come on, man. Counterpoint, or on the other side, though, Vern Lundquist, nicest guy in the world.
I believe it.
Incredibly friendly. The punchline to that story is right before tip-off. Right before. Like, the student radio is getting set up. They used to be on the floor at Allen Fieldhouse. They used to be right by one of the entryways, where the visitors come in fact. They used to be on the floor. Vern Lundquist, like, they're minutes from tip-off, comes, waddling down the sideline, puts his hands on the student radio table and goes, boys, you're going to learn when you're in this for a long time, make sure you go to the bathroom beforehand. And to run out to go use the restroom, like, right before the game tipped off, and barely got back in time.
That was like, remember I told you a few weeks back about Ben Holden of CBS Sports?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you're in this business long enough. You need to go away from your broadcast team for a little bit of smoke a cigarette. As he was going down the elevator.
As he was going to smoke a cigarette.
Guys, I'm still on Billy Packer's Wikipedia page, and I feel like I knew this, but it's still amazing to see that this sentence exists and is real and is about the guy you saw do college basketball games for many years, Billy Packer. Packer involved himself in high-profile legal cases, hiring a psychic to find the weapon in the O.J. Simpson murder case, and starting a legal defense fund for falsely accused 1996 Olympic bomber Richard Jewell.
Oh.
What?
Huh.
He had time.
Apparently so.
And resources.
Wow.
Hired a psychic to find the weapon that the real killer used.
That's wild.
That is absolutely insane.
That's incredible.
They only made one Billy Packer, and that's probably a good thing.
Truly just one of one.
Also, he did putt-putt golf analysis on ESPN.
I did know that. I've seen a video of it. It's awesome. Awesome. We've got a couple of games college basketball-wise. Unfortunately, Mr. Packer has passed on. We do have two big games coming up this weekend, though. K-State hosting BYU, KU hosting Texas. We'll start with the latter first. Texas has been something of a disappointment this year. I mean, they're still good, but
they're not like a lock tourney team, which I think a lot of people, I mean, they were preseason top 25, and they haven't been near top 25 in a few weeks.
The Kansas Jayhawks have been dominant at home, and, water's wet, sky's blue, all of that. KU should be able to handle business, right?
Yeah.
They should.
Even if McCullough's not 100% and they're managing his minutes, I would still tip KU to win just by virtue of it being at Allen Fieldhouse.
Hey, this is Texas. Did West Virginia break Texas?
Maybe.
It seems like ever since that game.
Here's what broke Texas. Rodney Terry's not a good coach.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
This show was right about that from the very beginning. Here's a change my mind for you. We played change my mind back in the 2:00 hour today. The most important player for KU is Hunter Dickinson the rest of the way.
Yeah. Dickinson's the one guy. He's the problem no other team can really solve.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can throw some bodies at him, but you're not stopping him unless he has an off night from the field. And there were a couple games there he did have off games from the field, but he got right, I think, against Oklahoma. Had a chance with no game midweek this week to get his body right. And I expect to see first team All-American caliber Hunter Dickinson the rest of the way. I think that stretch of a couple of games where he couldn't throw it in the ocean was an anomaly. Even if he doesn't all the way find his 3-point shooting stroke again, because he hasn't shot the three worth a damn in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. Even if he doesn't all the way find that, I still think that he'll be efficient enough from two that he'll get back to being that level for them. And again, Texas has some bigs, but they don't have that kind of big.
They don't have that kind of big. Two quick thoughts on Dickinson. One, did you see how frequently, or maybe I should say infrequently, he's getting to the line this year in Big 12 play?
Yeah, at the end of the press conference, somebody asked Bill Self about it.
Under 3 free throws a game for a 7-foot center in Big 12 play. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's remarkable.
And I think part of that is things Hunter needs to adjust, but also, dog, is that really the whistle we're giving this guy? He's being fouled more often than that. Come on. Real quick, not pertaining to this game, though. Right now, you think he's coming back for another year? No? Okay. I feel like in KU circles, there's been more momentum toward believing he is going to return.
That's interesting. And it might be like a Drew Timme type of situation where he gets a draft evaluation of, you're not a first rounder and you're a borderline second rounder.
Mhm.
And if there's more money to be made from the Mass Street NIL collective than there is to be made in the G League, then yeah, maybe he does come back. I mean, it really does change the equation so much. And maybe with Dickinson, maybe losing some of the effectiveness of his long distance shot, calling that into question a little bit. Yeah, maybe I could have my mind changed on that. That maybe he does come back for another year if the NIL bag is substantial. I mean, we saw Timmy do it. And Timmy ended up getting drafted. We haven't seen him in the NBA yet.
No.
We saw Sheway do it. Oscar Sheway came back
Mhm.
when there was like, why is he coming back? He came back. Zach Edey came back. And now I think he will be drafted this year, partly because this is like the worst NBA draft maybe in history.
It's right up there with, what was it, 2000? Yeah, the 2000 draft, abysmal. Do you know what a two-way contract pays in the NBA?
A two-way?
A two-way. Because if Dickinson gets drafted, I don't think he's going to be a full-time NBA player.
It's low six figures, right?
Little over $500K.
Okay. So right around mid six figures.
You know what he's making in NIL money?
He said close to $1 million, didn't he?
There is reporting that it is well over that.
Okay.
And if that is the case, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And
do the Van Wilder thing. Why not?
Why not? If you've got the opportunity to, why wouldn't you? And, you know, there's a lot that needs to be determined still, but Hunter Dickinson comes back. You'll have Dwan Harris for another year.
Hunter Dickinson, PhD at that point.
Yeah, on the Lightfoot game plan. Furphy? See, here's the problem.
I just read a mock draft that Furphy is a lottery pick. So
I saw that too.
I don't think that's happening.
I've seen two. Here's the thing about Furphy, and the one thing that would give, I'm going to assume he is gone until I hear he's coming back.
Mhm.
And the problem with Johnny is that there's one game. He's an international player.
Yes.
So he can't make money through
That's the draw.
The NIL.
the one thing that helps KU. The one thing in that regard. Where does KU play Houston next year?
Australia.
Mexico.
Mexico.
They play over. They play
Why did
overseas.
I say Australia? That was very stupid of me.
The-
No, they overseas.
I guess technically not overseas.
I got Furf on the brain.
Out of the country.
Or, I guess if we call the Rio Grande a sea, we can say overseas.
All right.
But they're playing internationally, which
Yeah.
means the international player can then make NIL money. So technically, he's going to make an absurd amount of money in one game
For one
if he
game,
plays
yeah.
it. But that's the one thing that can help KU.
And
You can make some money for that.
The other thing they can do is they can point at Grady Dick and say, "Hey, Grady Dick left after 1 year. He's been a two-way guy. Like, are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you spend one more year here, you could be a lottery pick who could play day one, as
And-
opposed to being a lottery pick who spends a lot of time getting to know all of the best restaurants and late night nightlife in the G League.
Yeah,
which is what Grady Dick is going through right now.
Yeah, it's been tough for Grady. It really has, and I think.
And that's not even a good roster there in Toronto. So
No, it's not.
I've been really surprised that Grady hasn't broken through consistently. But
No, I agree.
That's the way it's kind of been for a lot of the one and done college guys. There's a lot more of them now have been spending more time in the G League. So
we will. I mean, we got a lot of basketball left this season, obviously, but it is going to be fascinating what happened. I'm going to assume DeJuan Harris is going to come back for his final year. I'm going to assume that is the case. Furphy and Dickinson have big decisions, and if they're both back, KU is going to be, again, one of your favorites going into next year.
Yes.
One of them back among your Big 12 favorites and a title contender again, obviously. You lose both, it's going to be a really, really different roster come next season. K-State BYU. K-State going to get it done at home?
I think they can. It's a winnable game. They almost beat them in Provo, where it's hard to play.
Just felt like they were just barely kept at arm's length for so much. Like one run would have flipped that game.
Yeah, the big thing was BYU didn't shoot it at all in that game. They were terrible from the three-point arc. And if K-State can defend the three-point arc again and keep BYU from making 10, 12 three-pointers, then, yeah, they got a chance to win this game. John Gassaway, who covers college basketball for ESPN, had an amazing stat about Kansas State. He tweeted this about an hour ago. Trying to think of a recent team harmed more grievously by turnovers alone than Kansas State. They have the number 2 defense in the number 1 conference, close to average effective field goal percentage, but on track to miss the tournament with the number 80 shot volume out of 80 major conference teams. Essentially, they take fewer shots than any other team in the country because so many of their possessions end in turnovers.
That's nuts.
Yeah, that is. So close to average effective field goal percentage suggests that their offense maybe actually like if they could get into it, would be better than we think.
Mhm.
They get, they're scoring at a level that is close to average for the shot quality that they get, but the turnovers have just been killer. Now, BYU, not a team that really turns you over. So I think it's a little bit better matchup for K-State. They can take care of the ball, defend the 3-point line. They can get out of Saturday with a win. They're going to be playing desperate too. And that I always think helps the home team.
I would agree with that. I like the way BYU plays. I thought they were going to be awful. I really thought Mark Pope was going to get fired this year.
Mark Pope's done a nice job. They got a bunch of shooters. They got some length that can shoot.
Mhm.
And they got two really big, good big guys. My guy, Ali Khalifa, first team all mouth breather, all American. Just looks like he's just suffering through sinus congestion the entire game. But he can ball. Like, he's a good passer. He's got range. And then Fusimi Traore is like a wagon down on the post. So that's obviously not a great matchup for K-State's bigs, as we found out the first time around. So got to keep those guys from making an impact too.
Coming up on the other side of this break, we've got What Is Wrong With You, and then we hope to run down CJ Moore, some flight issues for CJ today. Hope to run him down. If not, we'll hear a little from Bill Self and Jerome Tang. Don't forget, we are done a little bit early in the 5 o'clock hour today for high school basketball, but still plenty more to get to on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Time to find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Our current winner for the week, it's the guy who shoved a bunch of stuff up his butt.
Yeah, Mitchell Vest, who wore a kilt so that he had easier access to his rectum so he could put things in him at a couple of different antique shops. Ruined the items. Ruined about $200 worth of items.
Ruined my week. hearing this damn story. Ugh. All right, Dan, what you got?
All right, we're going to Akron, Ohio. Guys, if you ever tried to rob somebody, like steal money, would you say that it's fair to assume that your end game is to leave with more money than you showed up with?
Yes.
That's generally the rule. Yeah. How about a guy who tried to rob a grocery store and left with less money than he showed up with? That's what happened. Wednesday, February 21st, at the Save-A-Lot grocery store in Akron, just after 5:30 p.m. The suspect, described as a white male standing about 6 feet tall, wearing a mask and a black hooded sweatshirt, approached the counter to make a purchase. He handed money to the clerk and then told the clerk he had a gun and threatened to shoot the clerk while demanding money from the register. The victims did not actually see a gun.
Oh, no.
One clerk sounded the alarm, and that freaked the suspect out. He ran out of the store and did not get any money from the till and did not collect the change from the thing he bought. This is a losing proposition for this guy. Not only did he not rob the store, he didn't get his change. He overpaid for whatever it was. You know, he slide a Zagnut bar and a white cherry Gatorade up there.
Those are so good.
Didn't get his change. Yeah, it's my favorite Gatorade.
Oh, they're so good.
Detectives are now trying to learn more about the suspect and find him.
Oh, that's funny. That's a really, really funny one. Just the premise of that one is incredible.
Show up to rob a place and then you leave and you're a wanted man now with less money than you started the day with.
When keeping it real goes really wrong. My story is going to take us to Ohio, where after being arrested...
Again?
What?
This was in Ohio, too.
Yes.
We're doubling up on Ohio. We have a double
Ohio. Ohio, as we know, is the Florida of the Midwest.
That is true. After being arrested again, keyword again, for trespassing on the grounds of an Ohio library, a suspect explained to police that a higher power allowed him to be on the property at 1:20 a.m. Specifically, 28-year-old Carnell Gittens told police that he had, quote, checked with Christ and had secured permission to trespass. Gittens was arrested early Saturday outside the Sandusky, Ohio Public Library, about an hour outside of Cleveland. He was using an exterior outlet to charge his phone. Gittens, who has twice already been busted for trespassing at the same library, cited Christ himself when a patrolman asked what he was doing on the property. Charged with criminal trespassing, Gittens was booked into Erie County Jail, where he remains locked up on $1,700 bond. Following a 2023 arrest, Gittens, who's nicknamed Cloud, told police he was from Canada and had been wandering Ohio for the past year. Yeah. What would Jesus do? Probably not tell you it's okay to trespass.
Well, I've never asked.
That's true.
You know, and I've never tried to get right with God and double check with him on, can I loiter outside this library at 1 a.m? It's cool if I charge my phone here, right? Do I I need permission from the highest authority. That supersedes the police.
I mean, depending on how you view things. So those are our two stories today. The guy who has now 3 times been arrested for trespassing at a library and said, Jesus told me it was okay. Or the guy who tried to rob a store and left with less money than he went in with.
I love the simplicity of that second. I think both stories are really good today.
Yeah.
I love the simplicity of a guy showing up to commit a robbery and leaving with less money. That is incredible. You got to be really good. You got to be pot committed to do a robbery. You can't just bug out at the first sign of trouble. He heard the alarm and he freaked. He was not ready. He was not fit for the grind.
No, he was not.
And it cost him money to find that out. I wonder if he at least left with the thing he bought.
That's a good question. That's a really good
completely
question.
Empty-handed.
All right, I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah.
The overall theme of it is too funny. Does that beat
Rectum guy?
The other guy?
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not.
I mean, he's got to be the weekly.
The what is wrong with you is he's a deviant. Like that.
Yes.
That's the answer to the question.
Yeah,
he probably wins. Ugh.
Yeah, I wish we could advance on the robber here, but that guy put things in his rectum.
Vile, absolutely vile. But he is our winner.
If anybody wants to go back, count how many times we said the word rectum this week on the show. Be our guest.
For our weekly winner and what is wrong with you. Sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications, which saves you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to your metal with Top City Metal Supply right here in the capital city. We'll talk some college hoops coming up next. Dan is on his way to Topeka West for some Lewis Toyota, high school basketball game of the week doubleheader action. Dan, enjoy the game.
Thanks, I will.
We'll talk some college hoops next, back here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Spencer here with you on 580 Sports Talk. Finishing off this feel-good Friday afternoon. Our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader is coming up in just a few moments. More than a few moments, like an hour from now, a little less than an hour from now. We'll be off the air sometime between 5:15 and 5:30. That's when we're scheduled to go off, by the way, before we get ready for Highland Park versus Kansas City, Washington boys and girls action coming up in high school hoops tonight. This weekend, we've got some K-State basketball action on our airwaves. Tomorrow, early afternoon from Manhattan. K-State, it's a 1 o'clock tip-off, if I'm not mistaken, at Bramlage Coliseum. K-State versus BYU, pregame at noon. Game will tip at 1. You can hear Wyatt, Stan, and the call right here on 580 WIBW. KU also in action tomorrow at 5 o'clock. You won't be able to hear those on our airwaves, that game on our airwaves, but KU is going to be in action. And we've got Washburn basketball on our sister station, Country 106.9. The Ichabod men and women, after a sweep over Lincoln last night, they will go for a couple of big wins coming up. UCM, Central Missouri Jennies and Mules. The Jennies got Washburn the first time back in Warrensburg, and the Mules also got the Ichabods on the men's side of things. So Washburn will look for some revenge. Our broadcast for that doubleheader will begin at 1:15 tomorrow, 1:30 game one tip-off over on Country 106.9. My voice, I think, has recovered. I'm about 95% recovered from last night. Voice was cracking at the end of that game, but it was a thriller. Washburn down 37 out of the 40 minutes of the game, but Braden Shorter goes for 25 points. Had the game-winning three by Brady Christensen with 7 seconds left in the game. Just an awesome win for the Washburn men. And the Washburn women, heck of a win for Laura Westling's group as well. They get off the schneid and their 7-game losing skid as they took down Lincoln. Now a big one coming up again tomorrow against Central Missouri. We would love to hear from you on the broadcast today if you want to be a part of the show. Text line number. We're still making sure the text line works. We've had some issues with it. You may have noticed there have been some major outages for pretty much every phone service provider, at least the major ones out there in the last 48 hours or so. So if you can get through, our text line number is 785-272-9429, or you can drop a comment on the YouTube stream.
I don't think it's fixed yet, and I think it might not have to do with that outage. It might have to do
Oh.
with the changing for us.
Yeah, we did. We should update our phone system. So now we hopefully won't drop as many calls. So if you can't text us, find us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. Go subscribe to the channel. You can watch the live stream there. Also streaming on the WIBW News Facebook page. You can comment there if that's where you're watching. Or if you open up the video on Twitter, you can reply and we'll see your comments there as well. We do know that the Royals lost their spring training opener today.
Yes. Was it 5-4?
Tragic. I believe it was, yes. Our pal Christopher in the YouTube comments, he says, well, damn, the Royals lost their first preseason game today, cancel the team, contract the team, turn the stadium into a demolition derby pit. It'll probably be in the next few years a hotel or a bar or some sort of high-end clothing store as part of Chiefville, which is what I'm sure that land is going to become once the Royals eventually move into downtown Kansas City or wherever they end up moving. More political drama. That's what I love when we talk about sports, political drama when it comes to building a stadium. Love that kind of thing. We were talking about some college hoops. We will try to get to CJ Moore before we are off the air today. We didn't get to talk to CJ yesterday. He was on assignment today, flight troubles. We've all been there. We have been there many times.
Yeah.
I guess it was last summer. Well, it was this past summer when it was especially bad. I have had many flight delay experiences, as more and more people have these days. I had an experience, Spencer, this summer where I had to sleep on the floor of the Nashville airport.
What?
It was bad. My flight got canceled. I had a connection from Savannah, Georgia through Nashville, then to Kansas City on a Sunday night. The connecting flight we didn't make because we had been delayed by a storm. Southwest did not exactly help us figure out the flight plan after that, the remedy for that very easily. So yeah, we spent 4 hours overnight at the Nashville airport sleeping on the floor. I slept for like 45 minutes. It was great. I was really in a great mood the next day. We have a text or a comment in on YouTube from David who says, hope we get the text line fixed. We are hoping we get it fixed too. We are, the interns are working diligently on it right now.
It'll probably be Monday.
That's the hope. That's the hope. So
People are a little busy today
yeah,
in the office.
Friday.
There's something going on though that the station's at, right?
Yeah, something.
Something not sports related.
So yeah.
So
sure.
we don't really care about
Yeah,
it. Right? Yeah.
Generally speaking, above my pay grade for the most part. I did want to get to some college basketball, though. We had Bill Self and Jerome Tang speak this week. Why don't we start with Bill Self today?
So I only have one cut clip because the other one's just speaking on the injury for McCullough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, the clip doesn't even matter anymore because he spoke pre-practice yesterday, so he didn't really have anything to say.
Yeah.
Besides, well, we didn't have practice Wednesday. I held them out the beginning of the week because, they practiced, I think, Sunday and Monday, or Monday and Tuesday. But then they didn't practice yesterday, and they were prepping yesterday and today. So he basically just said he's up in the air, but not like he was going to tell anybody anyways, is essentially what he said. He said, I wouldn't tell you guys anyway. He literally said that in the quote.
I mean, I get it. I understand in little gamesmanship there. So what do we have from Bill Self?
We have one clip, and it's him talking about Furphy saying the one part that I don't think is in here because I cut it off because I use that in my sportscast as a lead. He says he has not even scratched the surface yet.
I think he does everything pretty good. He shoots it pretty well. He runs in transition great. He's a good, finish with either hand around the rim very well. I mean, he does a lot of good things. I love having him out there, and I think players like playing with him. I still think he's a baby colt. He's just finding his way. But he's certainly, he's been terrific for us.
He's a baby colt. I do love that.
I don't get that reference yet because I'm assuming it's another player that's played in the past.
No, I think he's describing him like a young horse.
Oh, okay.
I
thought he was describing him about somebody that named Colt that played in the program sometime in the past.
No, I think he's just calling him like a young racehorse.
Yes.
Yeah. No KU basketball players named Colt that I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think he's just saying like There's a lot of potential here, but it hasn't quite been realized. But you can see it. And that's why, like, talking about what the future could look like for him. And I know we still have regular season games. We still have Big 12 tournament. We still have NCAA tournament to get to this year. I understand all of that. But when you think about the future for this team, if you can convince Johnny Furphy to spend another year in college, and I saw Eric Bossy, who we've had on the show before, he's a KC guy, one of the best in the business when it comes to basketball recruiting writing over at 24/7 Sports. He said that, hey, a lot of these international guys, they don't have the same one-and-done mindset that a lot of American young players have. So maybe that helps KU convince Furphy to come back for another year, trying to convince him of the development and the long-term benefits of it.
I have one more clip.
A second year of him, we'll get to that in just a second. A second year of him in this system, a second year of him with Bill Self coaching, with an elite point guard like DeJuan Harris, potentially with an elite big man like Hunter Dickinson. I just feel like the sky is the absolute limit for Johnny Furphy and what he can accomplish.
The next clip is about, because of the injuries, a lot of depth guys have gotten meaningful minutes and how that could help them going forward.
If you go back analytically, and if you guys studied it, when our 5 starters play together, once league play has started, it's pretty good. When there's been 1 or 2 of the 5 not in, it hasn't been near as good as when it's been with the 5 in. Nick and Omarco, we're not going to have depth unless we can play them both, and that needs to occur. I actually think, Nick hasn't shot it well, but his numbers are pretty good from a plus-minus standpoint when he's been in the game. Yeah, I think there's been some good things that's transpired. Those 5 playing together, it sounds easy. Your starters, should play the best. Well, that's obvious, or they shouldn't be starting. I mean, I totally get that. But the amount of minutes that starters actually play together in a game is minimal compared to what most people think it is, because you always have somebody that's subbed in. So even if, and we don't sub much, but even if that number's 18 minutes, whatever, that's still 22 minutes that it doesn't occur. We got to have, guys off the pine, off the bench, come in and be positive contributors, which we've shown where we can be. We just haven't done it consistently.
That's funny that he brings up the plus minus for Timberlake, because Nick Timberlake this season overall has been a net negative in the box plus minus for KU. And I understand what Self is trying to do there. I get it. He's just bad, man. I mean, it's just not a fit. It's unfortunate. I loved the signing when he committed as a transfer to KU. It just, sometimes it doesn't work out. That's essentially what it comes down to, and Timberlake has not worked out at all. And it sucks, because a dude who can come off the bench and light it up from 3-point range, don't you think that would be a pretty nice addition to this KU team? I would certainly say so. I mean, in his career at Towson, 5 years at Towson, right? He shot 37% from 3-point range. His last 2 years there, he shot just over 40 and over 41% on a huge volume of them. Do you think KU could use a 40% 3-point shooter this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. This year he's shooting under 28% from 3. I mean, that's the difference. I don't know if it's the size and speed and length of the Big 12 or what it is, but it hasn't worked out. And that is one of the reasons why, it's not maybe the biggest, but it's one of the reasons why you just can't rely on anyone but the starting 5 for KU right now. And again, it all comes back to the fact that Arterio Morris and that situation was a complete disaster. You don't have that piece. If you even had a 6-man rotation, this KU team is probably top 5 in the country right now. But they don't have that guy. They're not. Can't change the past. Let's move to some K-State action. Cats taking on BYU coming up tomorrow. Dan mentioned it a moment ago. I mean, this K-State team is desperate because right now, nobody has them in the NCAA tournament field. Nobody at the bracket matrix, which if you don't know, everybody knows Joe Lenardi, the bracketologist, the big name ones at this point, maybe Jerry Palm at CBS. Bracket Matrix has ones like 100 brackets from all over the internet, and they compile it all together into one big composite NCAA tournament bracket. And of the 100 entries right now at Bracket Matrix, 105 of them, Kansas State is not included in a single one. So they're desperate. They've got to figure out a way to make it in to the NCAA tournament, and they've got to win a bunch of games. They probably have to win at least 3 the rest of the way. They're going to have to win at least 1 in the Big 12 tournament, if not multiple in the Big 12 tournament. They are desperate. They've got to get a win. So let's get some of what Jerome Tang had to say about this.
All right, this is not the full comment because it went on for like a minute and a half, and he used a book quote from one of the books that he's currently reading.
Okay.
But obviously it's under a minute. So in the last few weeks, I think I mentioned it to you guys off the air the other day. Whenever he speaks, he does not negatively talk about his team.
Always positive. Always.
So he was asked today, how are you keeping it positive? We've known this week, obviously, specifically during the skid that they've had, that he's been really positive, and this is what he had to say.
An effort that gives you a chance to win the game, then it's going to be some little thing that can be adjusted. It's not like you got to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so our goal as a staff is to figure out how to keep us moving forward. We talk about getting 1% better every day, putting games in a box and moving forward. And there's just little tweaks. And if you're negative, right, it's like the energy vampire, sucking all the energy out the room. I don't want to be that guy. And I don't want my team to be that kind of a team. And I do believe that we're like 1 or 2 plays away from being able to win. I was 6 games now that are basically 1 possession games. And you can look back and you got to figure out what is it, the one thing that we can adjust or change that could result in maybe a different outcome in 2 or 3 of them.
You asked this earlier today, Spencer, while we were doing Change My Mind, about how many games K-State's going to win the rest of the way. And I just think this is fascinating how this could unfold. I don't think K-State's getting in the tournament this year. I did start a Big 12 play. I thought, shoot, that might be a 6 or a 7 seed. I don't think they're getting in at this rate unless they go on an unbelievable tear to end the rest of the regular season. I feel like they've got 2 wins at least on the rest of the schedule, but I don't know, man. I could see it either way. At home, Monday against West Virginia, I think K-State's going to win that game.
I have that as a lock win. That's the only lock win I have.
BYU, is it possible? Yeah. Cincinnati, I know that's a road game. It's hard to win on the road in this conference. I really do think Cincinnati has hit a wall, though. They're not winning in Allen Fieldhouse. I don't think K-State is beating Iowa State, even though that game will be at Bramlage. I don't know. You could argue for as many as 3 wins. You could also certainly argue for just 1.
Yeah.
And that's a reflection of how good the league is, obviously. But it's also just a reflection of the way this K-State team has played and the fact that no matter how many close games they've played, look in recent memory, K-State has played in its last 5 games. K-State is 1-4.
That 1 win is over KU.
Which is
crazy.
Of course.
To think about, right?
Every one of them has been by single digits. Prior to that, they had gotten blown out by both Oklahoma and Houston, and they lost by 11 to Iowa State. But you had the Oklahoma State game in Stillwater, lost by 3. 5-point win over KU, lost by 6 to BYU on the road. Lost by 3 to a decent TCU team. Lost by 6 to Texas, had that big kick late. Like, it feels like they're so close to something, but whatever this inability is to get over the hump has just completely derailed this season.
He talked about, I don't think we're going to have time to get to this because it's like 40 seconds, but he talked about it was the simple things that are hurting them. It's, not making the passes where they need to make them. It's not, hitting the free throw shots or hitting the easy 2s when you can have them. So, if you take those things, those are simple things. If you do those things, you're winning at least a few of those games that are single digits.
Frustrating. There's no other way to put it this year than just frustrating for Kansas State basketball. We've got less than an hour left. We'll get to a few 580 Sports Talk headlines before we send you off to the Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. That's coming up right after the national news here on 580 Sports Talk. final few minutes of 580 Sports Talk coming your way on this feel-good Friday afternoon. I am Brendan Dworzinski. That is Spencer Dupuis. We are finishing off this week on Topeka's home for Sports Talk, 580 Sports Talk. We will send you over to Topeka West High School for the Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader coming up in a matter of minutes. They are going to start early. 5:30 game one tip-off is the scheduled time, and Washington and Highland Park are ahead of schedule, it appears, already in the fourth quarter of the junior varsity game. So we will send you out to Dan Lucero and the coach, Larry Latimer, as soon as we are ready to begin pre-game coverage. We've got some 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up for you here in just a moment, though, to get you ready for a busy basketball weekend. Any final thoughts you want to send in? Text line is down for now. Hopefully we'll be back up by the start of next week. But you can go find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. We are also streaming the show live on the WIBW News Facebook page and on the 580 Sports Talk Twitter as well. Before we get to the headlines for today, let's run you through one more time the basketball action we've got on our airwaves here at Alpha Media Topeka coming up in the next couple of days. As I just mentioned, Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Our final regular season game of the week coming up tonight. It will be Highland Park, the girls first, the boys to follow, Lady Scots, then Running Scots, taking on Kansas City, Washington. That's just KC Washington in the boys game. The girls game will actually be a co-op between Washington and KC Schlegel, taking on Highland Park. That's coming up in just a few minutes right here on 580 WIBW. Tomorrow, noon pregame, 1 o'clock tip-off time. K-State will be in action against BYU at home at Bramlage Coliseum. You'll be able to hear that call right here on 580 WIBW. And pregame begins at 1:15 with a game one tip-off at 1:30 tomorrow over on Country 106.9 for the Washburn Ichabods taking on Central Missouri. UCM swept Washburn when the two faced off in Warrensburg earlier this season. Washburn will look to exact a little revenge for both the men and the women coming up tomorrow. 1:30 and 3:30 tip-offs. You'll be able to catch the broadcast with yours truly coming up on Country 106.9 KTPK tomorrow at those times over on our sister station. All right, with that all out of the way, let's get to a few 580 Sports Talk headlines for today, Spencer. One for me, a very well-known NFL cornerback is going to be a free agent. Xavier Howard, who has been a very good player in his career.
In his career, yes. I think he's fallen off since like 2020, 2021, if you go back and look at his stats.
So for sure. Over the course of his career, on balance, though, he's been a former first-team All-Pro. He was a second-team All-Pro back in 2018, first team in the COVID year of 2020. That year, he defended 20 passes. That's crazy. Four-time Pro Bowler. Also, in fact, in 2020, finished third in Defensive Player of the Year voting. But the Miami Dolphins have informed him that they are going to release him at the start of the new league year. That is coming up, as we talked about earlier in this week, on March 13th of this season. The four-time Pro Bowl selection is expected to have a significant interest on the market. That is according to Mike Garafolo of NFL Network. What is the market going to look like for a 31-year-old cornerback who's coming off a year in which he was slowed down due to injuries? In fact, has only played a full season. I'll count 15 games in 22. That's only missing 2 games. That's a full season to me. He has played in the NFL for 8 years. He has only played 5 full seasons. And he only played 13 games this past year. And again, like Spencer said, his numbers really, really tapered off. What is that market going to look like? I can't imagine a guy like that gets anything more than a 2-year deal. Even a Stephon Gilmore, who got a bigger deal than I expected last offseason from Dallas. I mean, we're talking about one of the best cornerbacks of a generation. We're talking about a former NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Xavier Howard's good. He's not quite that good. So I'm curious who is going to end up looking for a player like that.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I think there are some teams that could use him as depth. That's about it.
Yeah, he can probably start for some teams, but if you're looking at him to be your number one, I think you're probably going to end up being pretty disappointed if I had to guess. So that is the first one for me. Oh, I should also add the Chiefs are cutting the Dolphins are cutting a former Chief, excuse me. Forgot to mention that Emmanuel Ogbah is going to be cut. The former Kansas City Chief defensive end has spent the last few seasons in Miami. So the Howard cut is going to save Miami about $30 million or about $3 million with a large dead cap. Meanwhile, Ogbah is going to save a few million against the cap for Miami as well. We're actually short on time, Spencer. We are out of time. We've got to send it over to Topeka West for some Lewis Toyota High School basketball. So real quick, let's get to a fast final word for the week.
Excited for next week. It's going to be a very busy week.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to try to sleep a lot this weekend, so I know I won't be sleeping a lot next weekend, but that's my final word.
It is going to be a blast next weekend. We've got more regular season Big 12 basketball. We will have the NFL Combine to talk about all week here on 580 Sports Talk. We will have sub-state high school basketball. We'll have more Washburn basketball. Final week of the regular season for Division II. Can't wait for that. All coming up next week. My final word, KU, just get it done this weekend. You're at home. Take care of business. KU normally does the Allen Fieldhouse. You can beat Texas, so go take care of business, even with Kevin McCullough maybe on a bit of a minutes restriction. We are back with you for a full show coming up next Monday. But until then, for Dan Lucero and for Spencer Dupuis, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. You've been listening to 580 Sports Talk. We'll send you to the Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week after this.